If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. And that simple statement is the key to science. It doesn't make a difference how beautiful your guess is. It doesn't make a difference how smart you are who made the guess or what his name is. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. That's all there is to it.
What is up, party people? How you guys doing? I just want to say sorry about being late, kind of how I roll though. Actually in a really good mood. It's kind of odd. All right. One of the things I wanted to talk about today was these fallacies. You know, I don't want to put in the title again, but basically, you know, denying evidence and even worse, making claims with zero to provide behind it. If you guys hadn't seen it yet, I did a little poll, and if you haven't, I suggest you go do it because soon I'm going to be where am I going to find it again? I'm going to go ahead and close that out and decide which one I'm going to do. The poll that I put on there was what should my next upload be? I'd been doing a few uploads, and as far as I'm concerned, surprisingly enough, they've been doing actually pretty well in my opinion. So I've decided I'm going to do a lot more. It's pretty funny that you guys did pick one. So basically, I gave you guys a choice of Dan can't refract. That would be along the lines of Dan the Waterman, who has issues with understanding refraction, yet wants to do refraction experiments. And then also comment on them. So let me see what the hell, because it's telling me to close something before it lets me let anyone in. But everyone is here. Let's see what the hell I'm supposed to close out. I may have to start a new hangout. I'm not sure what the hell it's doing. Saying I have to close the diagram out before it lets me let someone in. I don't know what that means. But anyway, make sure you guys go over to check out that poll. Like I said, it was Dan Can't Refract. You guys kind of heard it on a couple of streams. Last night on Jose's stream, you kind of heard me got triggered on that. The next one would be NASA pre-30s Flat Earth, and then Dan the Waterman again made a claim last night that every image that NASA has presented someone is trying to join, close the diagram to see who it is. I don't even know what diagram they're talking about. Let's see. Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to start a new one because I don't know what diagram they're speaking on. I'm going to make this smaller, maybe. Nope, yep, nothing back there. Let me try this. Yeah, I know, guys. I'm trying to get you guys in here. I don't know why it's not working. I'm gonna have to start a new one. Let me see if I close this out. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and do it this way. See if that will work. All right, back to what I was saying. He made the claim that all images prior to 1930 were fake. or I'm sorry, it's even odder than that. His exact words were, everything NASA presented, all the space images of Earth that NASA presented pre-1930, which is another weird thing, all show a flat Earth. I had the honor to have a conversation with Unpaid Shill. If you haven't had a chance to talk to him, he's a very smart man. And he shared some images with me, 2 of them, and he asked me to do an upload, basically showing and explaining the idea of what happens when you compress images, whether they be a curve or a flat line. And right off the bat, Dan didn't understand that he didn't understand that if you compress an image that has curvature, it will then enhance that curvature. Then saying, well, you guys manipulated it. I told him, okay, well, let's find something else. So I got another image from Unpaid Shill and compressed that, and lo and behold, the lines that were curved it was much more curved, and then all the straight lines that were on there, vertical and horizontal, guess what? Stayed that way. So I'm going to do an upload, kind of going in depth in that. I may kind of go over that today, I'm sorry, and see how that goes. Again, I'll share the link in the back in the bunker, guys. I don't know why this didn't work. We'll try to figure that out from there. But again, I do apologize on that. Okay, I'm going to share this, and then I will say what's up to people in the chat. I haven't got an opportunity to do that yet. Let's see. Alrighty. Oh, why the hell it does that all the time? Okay, here we go. There we go, much better. All right, so I went ahead and I put the link in the chat, or into the bunker. This is hopefully it'll work. I'm not really sure what the hell is up with the link already. If it doesn't, we'll figure something out and get you guys in here. But oh, there he is. What's up, Unpaid Shill? How you doing, sir? Let me see. And we'll go ahead and get you dressed, because no, we don't want you naked. Yeah, see, he's still saying it. Someone is trying to join. Close the diagram, or the dialogue. What? Oh, there he goes. Perfect. Ah, it worked. What's up, farmers? How you doing, sir? Doing good, doing good. Let me make it so they can hear you out there. All right. Unpaid Shills, how you doing, my friend?
I'd like to make one minor correction in what you were saying a moment ago.
Absolutely.
He was saying pre-1957.
Did he?
One of the images that I sent out was 1930, so I think you got those 2 numbers crossed there.
Okay, because what I thought was odd. Or hold on 1 second. What's up, Blue? How you doing? Well, let me say what's up to everyone in the chat, and as you guys come in, then we'll jump into that real quick. Let's see who's here. All right. What's up, Mav64? How you doing, GPS? I did see your comment about Globe Busters, so if you want to go over there and see the same old show, go ahead. Just kidding. I know you're going to stay. What's up, Lenny? Let me get this over with. Shout out to all his vegan friends, even though veganism isn't good. Anyway, what's up, Grizz? Hey, Amy, how you doing? Oh, that's Kit. How you doing, Kit? Jax. What's up, No Name? See who else is in here before I get done. Ali B's in the house. What's up, Ali? What's up, Gently Channel? Menace, how you doing, my friend? Haven't seen you in a while. Let me see. I think that's about it. What's up, Carl? And you guys have a lot of names, so I'm going to stop right about... I don't see anyone new. Okay, I'm done. All right, maybe one more. Anyway, all right, so we can get back into that now. How you doing, Blue? One of the things I wanted to discuss was that the upload I was gonna do. Okay, so I got to go back into that hangout, but I could have swore that he had said pre-1930, which was odd to me right away. But if I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
pre-1930 doesn't make any sense at all, does it?
Well, that's why
No.
that's why I said, it didn't make sense to me. But if I'm wrong, then I do apologize.
Excuse me. Yeah, I'm pretty certain he said pre-1957.
Yes, because it's 57 when it became NASA as opposed to
Yeah, that's when it became that.
how would you pronounce NACA? Would that be NACA?
NASCA?
Yeah, NACA's close enough.
NACA.
Well,
Kick him in the knackers.
and that was the thing, because I've had that conversation with him before, and one of the things I kept telling him is that the reason, like, he kept saying how NASA lies this and that, and like, it's frustrating in a sense that NASA their job isn't to educate us on certain things, for instance, like gravity. We'll get into that as well. But what doesn't make sense to me is last night, me and Unpaid Phil, we were having a discussion with Dan the Waterman, and Dan the Waterman made that comment. I'm not going to say a date because I have to go back and look at the recording, but he said that NASA, all their imagery, pre-whatever, all showed a flat Earth, which is odd.
So how about that bit of film from when they launched? I think it was a copy V2 rocket in 1947, and it showed curvature.
Was it?
Yeah.
I think it was 46. No,
I believe it.
46. I know it was just after the war, and
I'm not sure.
it was. I don't know whether it was an actual V2 or a knockoff that the Americans had built subsequent. But that shows that famous black and white photo of a curved Earth.
No,
Yes, that was the first one.
That was supposedly the first one. I mean, that was
it
was
was
the 40s for fuck's
It
sake.
was, yeah.
That would be this image right here.
That was an actual V2. We brought about 100 and something of them back here from Germany.
Yeah, because I know a lot of the stuff you guys sort of made. You copied the V1 Doodlebug. I can't for the life of me remember what you called it, but you were building that and sort of evolutions and derivations of it for quite a while, weren't you?
Yeah.
Well, I actually found a photograph taken from a balloon piloted by, I want to say, Albert W. Stevens, that reached like 79,000 feet in 1930.
And that was the other one, right?
That was the second photograph,
Okay,
yes.
I have that as well. Let me grab that real quick. And it'll be a little. I'm gonna do both. We'll probably end up going through this, and then I'm probably halfway done with the download. It's actually fun to do this one more because I'm learning about imagery and how it works, and the I guess the claims that flat earthers are making about some of these that aren't knowledgeable of it. So it's kind of odd to me that they make a lot of these comments, and that's where I'm at right now with it. Kind of was talking about that last night on Jose's panel. We did a lot more after show talk than the panel part. But it was very clear. Again, I want to make this very clear. I don't take Dan very seriously. He doesn't want to listen at all, and that frustrates me.
No.
And it's not, and let's get this real clear. It's not that people don't understand stuff. Why? Because I don't understand anything. It took me a long time to start, and I'm nowhere near anywhere where I can be like, I know what's going on, and blah, blah, blah. It's not going to ever happen that way. So I would never do that to somebody, but, and I've been preaching this every stream, you cannot equivocally say, no, that's not how it is. It's like this, without an understanding of how something works, understanding where it goes wrong, and then the alternative. Now, having a different idea of how things work or a different mindset in it, it's fine. Going down different avenues, that's fine too. But then go down those avenues and explain it. That's the next issue. We're not getting explanations for these things, but it's flat. Doesn't make any sense. So I digress. This is the image that we were talking about. I'll go and do the present screen so you guys can see it a little bit better. And right off the bat, he said, or Dan the Waterman said, it's flat. Not making very much sense. It's that's
apart from that curving bit,
except for the curve part, right?
yeah. Well, that was then where we really got in depth with what was going on.
It gets better.
Oh yeah, it gets much better.
No, damn it! That piece of paper that thing's printed on is flat. I guarantee you that is a flat piece of paper.
So
I can see the creases in it.
So we were literally trying to explain to him how, if you compress it, how we know it's curvature. His idea, which, it's not even like a bad idea. I mean, if you really want to get down to it, to put a piece of paper on it. I mean, it's kind of cavemanish when you really break it down. He wanted to basically, let me get this off the screen. Sorry, guys. He wanted to put a piece of paper up against it, up against the image, and that's how he would have could tell if it was curved or flat. And he was convinced it was flat. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Let me go ahead and...
I've just held a bit of paper up to my screen.
Well, here's
and
the thing.
It wasn't flat.
Well, that's my favorite part about this. Let me go ahead and share this real quick.
I mean, part of the fact you could see the bloody curve anyway.
Well, yeah, you can.
Yeah. Well, again, this is we talked probably with Dan the Waterman probably about an hour on this alone, and it's again, he made it like he kept saying he didn't know, he didn't understand, but the second we started like showing him how these things work, it got worse. Like on page Shell
Draw a line across there.
Yeah, well, I did one better.
I could see it.
Don't forget the fakery involved, because that little seam in the photograph.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
Well, no, that was the other one. And oddly enough, he didn't say anything about this one. And I can tell that this is an old photo, which is why I see all the little creases in it. But he didn't say anything about this one. This one, like, he didn't give a weird because of. I mean, he did say it was flat. But so what I did is I took it to my Inkscape, and the first thing I did was this. Go ahead and do this. I went bam. I put a line across. I put a big piece of paper across it. And like you guys said, right off the bat, you see there is curvature. There's nothing you can do about it. That's curvature. So, in that sense, his way shows curvature. So, I mean, we wouldn't really need to continue, but we're going to anyway. And again, this is how simple it is to do this. And he was just unwilling to listen at all. So, when you compress an image, if it's a flat line, it will stay flat. If not, it will curve. So we crunched it. And when you do that, what happens? The curve becomes very pronounced.
Yeah, you're just exaggerating what's already there, aren't you? Now, if that was flat originally, it would still be flat. Like, because the line that you've drawn.
Not according to Dan.
Yeah,
well,
according to
that's
Dan,
because it goes against his beliefs.
Yes. Well, what you saw me do, and I will undo it right now, where I just did this. He considers that manipulating the image. Again, we were trying to explain to him that's not manipulating the image, it's just compressing it. And he said, well, no matter what, that line would have done that because you're manipulating it.
No.
Well, luckily, Unpaid Show is still here. So we got this one.
Yeah, but you'd already got a straight line drawn across there anyway. And when you compress the image, the straight line remains straight and it exaggerates the curve that was already quite visible. A blind man would be pleased to see it.
Yeah, well, then Unpaid
Because, of course, then he wouldn't be blind, would he?
Yeah, of course.
Well,
Unpaid Shield sent this over, or into the chat, and I brought over the Inkscape. And this right here is basically, what was it called again?
That's a test card.
Yeah,
we used to have that over here in the UK when the TV was turned off for the night, because they used to back then. You had a test card, and you had something very similar to that, and there was a picture in the middle of a girl playing noughts and crosses on the blackboard. So people of a certain age over here in the UK would be very used to seeing something like that, because they'd send that out at the end of TV transmission for the engineers to use.
And okay, and then basically line it up and get it all good going. Good, I get it.
Yep.
Let's see. Yeah. Okay. So again, oddly enough, I mean, it was a weird. I'm gonna tell you everyone right now, if you ever go to Jose's stream and you can get on that freaking panel, forget the damn show. Get on the panel for the after show, because that's when shit gets real. I mean, I'm not sure if you remember, or I'm pretty sure you remember Unpaid. It was, you can't forget it. We watched a man get stuck in Jose's panel.
Yeah.
Stuck?
Yeah, that guy Aaron that was on Jose's.
I was watching some of that.
The one who called me out.
Because obviously that streamed whilst I was fast asleep. So
yes,
I caught up with some of that this morning.
And before he got stuck, right? You know, this was amazing. So right before he leaves, he wants to make sure he makes it clear, hey, Unpaid Chill, I want a piece of you, because he had been egging him on the whole night. And Unpaid Chill said, okay, fine. You tell me the time and when, I'll be there. Jose, Aaron, say the time and when, I'll be there. And so Aaron said, I'll bury you. I'm going to bury you. And then he wanted to make his exit. And he couldn't get out of the meetup. I got that shit on recording.
He didn't know how to exit.
Yeah, he couldn't get out of there. So we're going to watch that in a little bit too. It's going to be amazing.
But I told Aaron, I said, you bring your shovel, I'll bring a front end loader, pal.
Yeah. It was amazing. I don't even know how to explain what happened. Like, it was so confusing and wonderful and trigger. Like, I went through every emotion. It was wonderful. So
the after show went on until almost 4:30 in the morning Central Time.
Yeah, we probably talked for a good almost 3 hours. Yeah. And then like I said, I had the opportunity it was basically just a one-on-one with me and Unpaid Phil. We talked for about an hour and a half.
Yeah, something
Wonderful.
like that.
Yeah, it was a great conversation. I said,
had phone sex, everything. It was great.
Man, I told you not to tell anyone. I'm selling those. I'm going to sell those tapes. But,
Cat's out of the bag now.
No, not yet. Anyway, I digress. Let me go ahead and do this. So we put this in front of Dan the Waterman and let him see that his idea that what we were doing is manipulating the image was not true. As you guys can see, this has everything. It has the circle, it has horizontal, vertical lines, checkerboards, whatever you want, it's got it. So when we go ahead and do the same thing, what we see is, again, the curve, the line, the circle becomes more accentuated, a lot more curve, taller. Mm-hmm. But here's what's important. Because we now know that curve will become more enhanced, because we've done this, and under Dan the Waterman's guides, those straight lines should be curved as well. They're not. Every one of those lines are straight, which again is, I guess you would say, because it's a measurement, this is proof that a curved line, compressed, is accentuated and straight lines stay straight. Why? Because you're not bending anything, you're not twisting anything, you're just compressing it, and it has to fill up that room somehow. So what does it do? It makes room. It makes it taller. And what?
Same thing as turning the card slightly sideways. If you were holding it in your hand, turn it a little bit sideways. It's the reason why the Pontchartrain Bridge looks the way it does in Soundly's videos.
Yes, and another issue.
There were crickets.
Yeah, he didn't. He still refuted it. Don't think he didn't. Don't think he would just see to that. But he just changed subjects, which will down the line.
It's a bit similar. I don't know whether they do it over in the States. I'm sure they do. But over here on when you've got televised sort of football and rugby and everything else, actually out on the pitch, they will paint these huge logos for whoever the sponsor is. And from the point of view of the camera, the logo is perfect. Mm-hmm. Because they're allowing for the angle you're looking at it. When you actually go down to the pitch and look at it, it's all stretched and skewed, and it's a right fucking mess. Because you're not looking at it from the exact angle it's designed to be looked at, i.e. up where the cameras are, that are usually sort of 30, 40 foot up and set back in the stadium, and it's exactly the same thing. All you're doing, you're just compressing it one way to exaggerate or not a view. That's all it is.
Exactly. Take your drone over the nearest intersection that has words painted on the street like stop.
Yep.
And look at it straight down and see what stop looks like.
Yeah.
Wow, is that thing a long way?
And okay, so
Exactly.
this was actually the one we were just looking at, or the one we're looking at right now, was the second image. I'm gonna go ahead and put the first one in so you guys can kind of have an idea of where else we went with this. And this one, he had a real big issue with something. Didn't make sense at first. He had an issue with the orientation of this image, and again, it literally is the first image of outer space. And one of the things he had said, and it didn't make sense, is and Unpaid Chill, I re-listened to that. I was thinking he was talking about this area right here, where my cursor is, where it's just that weird line. I think he was literally talking about Earth in space, that divided that. But I don't know. Which he's a weird dude. I don't. Everything he talks says.
Was he upset that the sort of the angle at which the photos or the images been taken?
That is what I was gonna say. He says, and they're all orientated like this. And I said, okay, well, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, Dan. I mean, I could just turn it if you want to, and we can make it straight. And he said that's manipulating it again. So the reason I wanted to show that is because if we go to this one again, where we've already shown that it's going to stay the same way, I'm going to turn this. And under, again, Dan's guides, I'm manipulating it. Problem is no matter what I do, those lines stay the same. Those lines aren't going to change because I twist it. It doesn't work that way. I kind of messed it up right there. That's really twisting it. But still, hey, lines are still straight. Nothing started bending, so I pretty much showed that no matter what you do in that situation, those lines aren't going to change. Now, go back to over here.
Well,
so when we're showing this, go ahead.
You could sort of have a point if you go back in time 15 or 20 years when you had CRT monitors, because there were some linearity issues with those things. But certainly not on these screens we're looking at today.
Yeah,
that's built.
I spent years using AutoCAD on high definition for the time, but they were still CRT monitors. And yes, when you'd zoomed in and zoomed out in AutoCAD, the number of times you sort of looked at it and said, "Oh, hang on a minute, I'll have to refresh," because everything had sort of gone blocky and horrible and that's another thing.
The aliasing was terrible.
Yeah, when you're used to using something like AutoCAD and you're looking at lines on the screen all day for 20 years, you spot straight away if a straight line is out by 2 or 3 pixels. If it's half a degree out, you can see it, and it stands out like a sore thumb. And the same goes for a very slight curve. If you're expecting to see a straight line and you see a curve, or vice versa, you spot it straight away because you're looking at this all day, every day for 20 bloody years, you know.
Yeah, it's again that it's, to me personally, it's an insult because it's very disingenuous, waste of time, first of all. Because I could be, or better yet, at the time, Unpaid Chills and I could easily have been explained to somebody who gives a fuck. Again, we weren't on a live stream. It wasn't a situation we were, how I usually look at it, as there's somebody out there listening that does give a fuck. We were literally trying to explain something to a guy who doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
It's pretty frustrating. I make a big huff about him and this refraction thing because he makes comments that are clearly just that's all I know how to say about it. So again,
sums it up.
The main thing I'm gonna do is, and I didn't think I was gonna do it because I don't really like it, but I gotta start correcting this crap. At least I know it's not gonna be disrespectful, but at the same time, it's gotta be said. If there are people that do not care for truth, don't be here. If you don't want to know the truth, don't get involved.
Well,
Dan says something
doesn't that go for most of them? They're clearly not interested in the truth because the truth clashes with their weird cult belief system thing. You know, they're oh, show me evidence, give me evidence, do your research. Yeah, we do all that, and you stick your fingers in your ears, close your eyes, and go la la la. I'm not listening.
Yeah, it's pretty
How
bad.
frustrating is that?
One of the main things that he said something last night that really got me. I mean, it was really fast. I'm not even sure he's a flat earther. He made a few comments as in he has something to say and get out there, and he thinks flat Earth is a joke. Globe Earth is a joke as well. I think he's more, just the government's bad, and he jumped aboard flat Earth, and he's running with it because he thinks he can. But
it may be a case of he just wants to be a shit disturber.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, yeah, he talked a lot. I'm not going to even say a lot. I'm not going to say any of the stuff he said about certain people because that's on him to do. But yeah, he starts a lot of shit. He has issues with a lot of people, and I can only wonder why. It's to the point where I literally rather just not engage with him anymore. First of all, when he gets near me, he starts personally engaging with me to piss me off. And everybody knows I get triggered way too easy for that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to go Terminator on everybody's ass a couple of times.
Yeah. So if you're on my panel, Unpaid Chills here, he will put your ass in check. He did it last night, and it was some drunk people, and that's the guy that got stuck in the. Oh, that guy Aaron, that was a very special person. Holy crap!
What was that whole thing with the table?
Okay, that's perfect. I want to talk about that.
What the fuck was he on?
Okay, so we were talking about atmospheric pressure.
Yep.
And he kept saying, and this was his argument. He kept saying that atmospheric pressure should be it was a column. Is basically he wouldn't back off that. But more importantly, what he kept saying is that this is weird. He kept saying that he saw an image, and that image said, or that I don't even know how to say it.
Yeah, and that image he couldn't find because he was on his phone or something, wasn't he? So he couldn't show you the image that he was confused about.
A diagram.
Some picture.
Yeah, but he couldn't describe it. He couldn't source it. He couldn't. All he could say basically was, let me get this done. Basically, all he would say was, "No, science. It's what science was saying." But the problem was that he kept saying that if you put a table at 40,000 feet, under that table would be, I guess, void of atmospheric pressure. As if you poured water on a table, the underside of that table wouldn't get wet. Yeah.
That's the impression I was getting, that because this 14.7 psi is a column of air 1 inch square going all the way up to where there is no atmosphere. If you put a table in the way, you are in effect getting rid of that weight, getting rid of that air pressure, because the table is between you and the column of air. I think that's how I understood he was driving at.
I believe you're correct, because that was the impression I got as well.
Which just had me sort of, facepalm central. And then I thought, no, hang on a minute. If you really don't understand it, I can see how you might come to that conclusion. That if you put a table in the way, the table's getting in the way of that column of air. Apart from the fact that air is still, just like love, all around.
Well, now in his defense, I do have to say that I don't necessarily believe he was saying he believes that's the case, but he was certainly giving the impression that that's what he was getting at. If does that make any sense?
Yeah. I mean, that I'd sort of listened to it, and obviously because I'd watched it after the event, I could sort of go back, every 30 seconds ago and sort of listen to it again and think, I think that's what he's getting at. But obviously it doesn't work like that. Although I could see how somebody might come to that conclusion if they really don't understand the basic concept of it.
Oh, wow. Is this Spurs?
No, no. Unfortunately, this wasn't Spurs.
No, so okay, hey, yeah, we're gonna talk about that too, Dress. Yeah,
So
hang tight,
then,
buddy.
so then we tried to explain to him that it's not a solid object, that air is fluid. Then he
Yes.
starts conflating fluids and liquids.
Yeah.
Ah, well, yes, because people get confused. Because when you say fluid to somebody of a non-technical nature, they automatically.
I
think,
know-
I
wait.
misuse
I
the
know
wrong
who he-
term
hey.
all the time.
I know
I have to
exactly who he was parroting right now. Right to Hand. Right to Hand was doing this earlier today in the Discord server.
Yep.
He was arguing this. He wasn't arguing exactly this. What the conversation was about was whether or not we could see atoms. And we tried to explain to him that scientists have with computers, technology, and he started doing his dance where he starts playing with words and explanations to not have to answer anything, and he kept saying that they weren't real. I made it very clear. I said, okay, well, I explained to him that we could, and he said, if I take a picture of a unicorn, does that make it real? I said,
If it was a real unicorn, it would.
God, it would,
well, that's
yeah.
what I said. I said it's a real image of a fake unicorn. And then he said, well, if I get something in a unicorn DNA and I can make I don't even know. And I went, well, there's no such thing as unicorn DNA, therefore it's not real. It's not reality. Then
So this is just a subtly different skit to his "I'm gonna fly." If I say I can fly skit, then
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
So he says, what did he say? He goes, you can't see an atom, therefore it's not reality. And I instantly thought, well, we don't see evaporation. So instantly I said, hey, Right to Hand, what about evaporation? Can you see evaporation? And he said, nothing. He wouldn't answer me. What he wanted was an explanation, or I'm sorry, a definition for, ready? Vapor. Answered that question. He said then he wanted the definition for evaporation. Jesus Christ. I gave him that. Then he said he wanted the definition for gases. and all the while never answering anything. And
Has he never seen a dictionary before?
Oh, I'm sure he has.
Can he just not Google it?
Well, that's what I said. I said at some point,
but
if you don't,
what does Sean mean by evaporate?
yeah,
I want to make sure that Sean is right, and this way, then if he's wrong, I can point it out, or if I disagree with that particular dictionary view, then I can quote another one.
Exactly.
It's all that shit.
Yeah, because I went through a whole list of things. I was like, Right to Hand, if you got on your webcam right now and I saw you because I was looking at my screen on my phone, I said, are you real? Wouldn't answer it. And then I made it very clear. I said, hey man, if you're not going to answer questions and you're going to just be dancing around everything, I said, you know what? Let me know when you're ready to pull up your big boy pants and we'll talk then. And he didn't say anything. I think then
what is the definition of the word "and"?
And so what he did is he ended up going, chemo, unfortunately, got to the server and decided he was going to jump in to, and that's actually on the screen. That's the damn freaking diagram I was trying to, image I was trying to find last night. I couldn't find it though. But what he was doing was, chemo came in, started his BS, and got everyone all worked up. And then Right to Hand came into the voice chat and started, starting a lot of shit there too. But I'm not talking about those two so much. I want to talk about our boy Dress here. Because there's a guy in the Debate Flat Earth and More server. His name is David. David is what I call... Okay, again, this isn't me being disrespectful. This is him. He's dumb. The guy purposely does and says stupid shit. For instance, Russia doesn't exist to him. Really? You should be able to drive a truck from Alaska to Russia. How come? How come there are no plane flights from Alaska to Russia?
If you went back about 15,000, 20,000 years, You could have driven from Alaska to Russia.
Well, matter of fact,
There's
there's there's a certain part of the time of the year where you could probably drive like one of those snowcats, I think they're called. But the problem is that Russia is like, no.
Yeah, they tend to get a bit upset when people turn up without prior invitation. Yeah.
and so he's the type of guy you don't talk to. Dress is new to the server. I'm not sure. You're not days new. You've been there for a minute, right? Like a few weeks.
Yeah, I've been in probably about 5 times.
Okay. Oh yeah. So you're still a baby in there.
Oh yeah.
Well, Dress here, he encountered David, and I'm not sure if you've ever heard him talk to Chemo or some other flat earthers. He gets really irritated by it. Well, David started getting irritated, and I knew it was going to happen because when I first got there, Dress was talking, getting a little irritated maybe, but he was still just rambling on with David. And I DM'd him. You didn't see that DM, did you?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I said David is
I'm
a
pretty
troll.
sure of that stuff.
There is no point in talking to him. He literally is a troll. Like, there's 0 point. He's never going to listen. It got to the point where I had to say it again in the chat, and then right when it happened, I had to get on there and I had to say, "Hey, Dress, stop! Don't." He's doing it on purpose. And luckily enough, Dress wasn't that bad, but I had to laugh at him because he had his first. I'm pretty sure that was your first encounter with David, right?
I think I've spoken to him a little bit once before, but not much.
Yeah,
but yeah, I mean that's kind of special.
Yeah, if you're not talking cars and engines, don't talk to him. Do not. So I'm telling you, he's bad.
Dave is like the antimatter of Big Blue.
Yeah, he is. He's loud. He's like, this guy screams into the freaking microphone. I have to constantly mute him and tell him, dude, stop yelling. That's like the main issue I have with David. Just that he yells so damn much. But yeah,
I yell on the microphone sometimes too.
Oh no, you don't. You whisper compared to this guy.
Well,
whisper.
Look, I've heard Blue get upset once or twice.
Yeah, but David does that nonstop. And then you know how Chemo started and this is the problem. Chemo likes this chaos. So Chemo was stirring shit up, getting right the hand in there to start yelling on like a freaking idiot. And I have to do that every day, Dress. So that's why when all that happens, I freak out. I flip out. I don't give a fuck about Chemo. He is I told him to show this last night. Chemo's one of the main reasons I left Flat Earth. I realized that they're just pure crap coming out of a lot of their mouths, and it was very obvious to me that he was a snake oil salesman. He is the one who coined that term. He's the one that I made that term for originally. Never answers anything. It's pathetic to me. Again, I don't like being an asshole about these people, but there are certain ones that I just refuse to deal with anymore in that sense. Like I said, Chemo, I wanted to debate Chemo for a long time. I wouldn't debate Chemo if my life depended on it now. He's useless to me. To be honest, last night I did.
He's useless to everyone, isn't he?
Oh yeah. Last night on Jose's panel, when he was wrapping everything up, I called out Riley, and I want to make this very clear and how serious I am, because there will be rules. I called Riley out. I want to debate. Riley, if you're out there, anyone who knows Riley, tell him I am calling his ass out. I want to debate. I'm prepared now. That shit ain't gonna happen. That happened that one time.
I have just this moment left to reply to one of his comments on, I think it was that Hangout.
Yeah,
the guy is a fucking moron.
Oh yeah. He's a dickhead.
No 2 ways
He's just a pure dickhead. Like, fuck that. I'll be disrespectful to him because I'm gonna tell everyone when he messages people, or maybe it's, I don't know if it's everyone, but me, he's very disrespectful in those. He deserves no respect, and this is why I did this. So, hang on. I called Riley out. I want to debate, scheduled, not just some wing off the wall shit. But here's what's important. The most important part about it. I want to put up my channel. I want him to put up his channel. And that's how fucking serious I am about this. But there's a stipulation to it. If we have citations we will have a third party that reads them.
Well, all of
You
them,
need-
not just cherry pick bits.
Thank you, and that's why, because he will cherry pick through his shit and stir an argument into a certain direction. Because if he can't do that, excuse me, if he can't do that, he's nothing. How do I know? He's been on my panel. No, I think it was Channel Q's once, and in my panel the second time, and I abused him, in a sense of he had nothing to say if you don't give him the opportunity to bullshit. So a third party. Who reads our citations, which will be pre-ready, meaning have them now. We're not Google searching anything. Be ready for it.
Is Anthony Riley the failed solicitor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I don't think he's ever actually had a legal career.
No, he hasn't.
Because he did post in a side chat last week. He said something about, I've been in transport for 15 years. Well, if he went to school, did A-levels, and then went on to get the qualifications he supposedly got, by the time you've done all that, that was about 15 years ago. So, although rumour has it he might be a magistrate.
Yeah.
But of course, you don't actually need any legal qualifications, experience, or training whatsoever to be a magistrate over
I
here in
hope
the
if he's
UK.
doing anything with law.
That's our
it's just
equivalent of
filing.
justice of the peace, right?
Yes, you have to be an upstanding member of the community, and that's about it.
Well, shit, that right there ought to rule him out.
Well,
Yeah, I was going to say he fails there too because
I was drinking some water when
he
you said
lies
that.
like a cheap rug.
but
Yeah.
given his age and given that if he went to university to do a degree course, he'd had to do A-levels first. That means he would have left school in 1998 and then spend, I don't know, 4 or 5 years doing further education. Brings you up to about 2003, 2004.
Oh no, you can get a so that's why I said there's a difference between a solicitor, a barrister, and then if you do your basic solicitor's qualification, then you can specialize.
Yes.
So I think it's only 3 years to do a solicitor's degree.
Well, if that's the case, he still didn't have very long before he started his career in transport.
It probably means he started but may not have finished.
Yes.
That would be my guess, because he's got some grounding in it. You know, that's obvious in the way he talks, but that could be something he could have organically picked up or something he's got through training.
He's clearly skilled in the art of bullshit, yeah.
Yeah, and that's why it needs to be set up. It needs to be scheduled, and that third party, to me, is the most important thing. And then, like I said, I'm not bullshitting at all. If he can't. If he can prove that Newtonian gravity is thrown out, no longer used or taught, I'll delete this fucking channel. And I've been making that deal or that shout out to all the people I've been putting. Chris, I've given him opportunities to get this channel deleted. Mind of God, like all these people that. You can get rid of me. It's that easy.
Sean.
But
Well, he that shall no longer be named. Thank you for reminding us, Channel Q. He that shall no longer be named has already done that once, which is why he's now got the channel under that name, because he shut down his previous channel because he lost a challenge.
oh, really?
So to become a solicitor, so to become a full solicitor takes 6 years in the UK. This includes a 3-year law degree, 1 year as an LPC, and finally 2 years training contract with a law firm.
There you go.
So you need to do all of that to then get your bar qualification.
Sean,
Yep, what's up?
I would love to be the moderator for that one.
So all I can say is law degree
You got
3
the job,
years.
sir.
I'll take that as a partial win.
You absolutely got the job. Like I said, that's the only thing he has. And that and just that disrespect. He knows if he says something, he can get someone to get triggered and definitely have the advantage. I don't think he'll delete his channel though. I think he's a bitch. But at the same time,
Well, like I say, it has happened before.
Yeah. Well, more importantly to me, I just want to show people that he isn't shit. All he has is that he has to catch you not ready. I'm ready.
Hey, can I
got a whole presentation.
call somebody to step up to the mic?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, Blake Spheroid, why don't you jump in here? Let's chat, buddy. You seem to be doing a lot of smack talking in chat.
Oh, Newtonian gravity is out of the window. Is it really? Well, if it's out
Yeah,
of the
come
window,
on.
it will hit the ground.
Step up to the mic. Let's talk, buddy.
Let me make this clear. My little, the whole show me, it goes to anybody. Show me. Because it's not, you're able to. You guys are literally just BSing because you don't understand, maybe. But regardless of whether or not you understand, there are people that do.
Hey,
you guys need to listen.
Chills, did you know you're a retard? Oblate Spheroid says we're retards.
Oh.
Really?
Yeah.
What are we lower? What are we?
You know, I'm a
than or
dumb
backing
fucking
down
taxi driver, but you know, or at least I retired from being a taxi driver.
Maybe we should look up the definition of that.
What do I know? I'm just a design manager. I'm just some dumb schmuck, am I? Yeah.
All right. It says retard. Delay or hold back in terms of progress, development, or accomplishment. I feel like we're all pretty. Yeah, I feel like we're all pretty accomplished and whatnot.
Is he looking for Luddite?
Well, we can't be Luddites because we're all on bloody computers.
Well, yeah, I was just saying that's kind of where he's going with that kind of.
I used to work with a Luddite. He used to phone me up and say, "I've sent a transmission to your thinking box." You mean you've sent me an email?
and that's the other thing, because I like that. I'm actually perfect that guy just did that in the chat, because Flat Earth likes to make these comments when they're in the chat. They like to derail conversations like this when it's time for them to start answering stuff. Now, this would be more directed to other flat earthers who don't do this but believe it's flat. Why aren't you guys questioning flat Earth because of those people? The disingenuous ones, the ones that are completely full of crap. Don't you think there's a problem there? And just to make it clear, that's an issue with the Globers as well. There are guys who just want the shit show. They want to get their 2 cents out because they want to call someone a fucking moron, Sean Hawkins. And what ends up happening is they become assholes. Because when I came around, when I first got here, Flat Earth was innocent. I know it sounds funny, but no Flat Earthers were running around talking shit, sniping, just being all aggro. That shit started once they started getting sick of the trolling. Now it's both sides. I think Flat Earth is actually starting to get worse than the Globers are, but at the same time, I'm not going to lie. A lot of them have a reason. I mean, not the fucking orbital sphere, whatever his name is, but I do know a lot that are automatically defensive on a panel full of Globers. Those ones. Go ahead.
Which is not unreasonable. I was just going to say, he has actually asked, well, he's made a kind of statement that is actually interesting. Said you don't even know the updated definition of gravity. Why don't you come in and discuss that?
Yeah, come on, Oblate, step up or shut up.
Well, no, not even like that. It's just, that's actually something that we can talk about in a reasonable fashion.
Yeah,
it doesn't need to be aggressive.
Yeah, what happens is Oblate Spheroid will say these comments in the chat, and it does irritate people, because if you believe that, come in and have a nice conversation about it, and I promise you, if you come in with, like, got some sense, everything's gonna go fine. I mean, you come in here acting like an asshole, I'm gonna sick the dogs on you. I don't give a fuck. It's very old to me that you would
come on, Oblate.
In here like that.
Come on, get in here with us beta. Show us how alpha you are. Come on.
The link is in the chat. There you go.
Come on, Jackson. I'm just a dumb taxi driver. Why don't you come in here and show me how smart you are?
Yeah, that's a weird part to me. Why do people do that? I mean, I can get it if you guys are in a chat and it's a flat Earth one, or some of these globe ones that don't put that link out there. Give everyone the opportunity to get out to do it, and I mean, Jose does it. I do it. You guys should be eager to get that flat Earth proof out. I mean, I'm not going to give you any globe proof. I'm going to give you globe evidence. You know how I roll. But you guys like to say it's proof. So don't you have something to explain because it's been proven to you? I would be on every platform I could proving you're flat Earth if that's the case. Not
come on, Oblate. I'm waiting.
I don't mingle with taxi drivers.
All right. Well, you know what? I I also used to work on nuclear fucking missiles. Do you mingle with people who used to work on nuclear missiles? Come on, get in here.
Well, no, you might be radioactive.
Yeah, I can already tell you right
Trying
now.
to think what other excuse he's going to come.
He's not gonna show up.
I also used to design and build computer systems. I was a voice processing systems engineer. Come on, you want to mingle with me?
Hey, Q, welcome back.
Hey, Q.
Let's see.
Come on, I'm waiting for you. I'm hungry.
Trying to find right to hand right now.
I just got the picture of you having the warmest taxi at Christmas time, even though the heating's never on.
Oh, nope, that's not him.
The ready break man of taxi drivers.
That's the one, ready break, yeah.
Hey, Sean.
Yes.
Riley just responded and said he's too busy watching Globe Busters to come in your chat. So,
of course.
I'd let you know.
Oh, well, I can tell you right now, the debate won't be right now. I'm 100% serious about it. It needs to be scheduled because if
yeah. What I said to him is you want to have a one-on-one with him, and he ought to get his ass in this chat and set it up.
Yeah. And again,
his response was he's too busy drinking something and eating pizza and watching Globe Busters.
Yeah. See, and that's the funny part because last night wasn't the first time I called him out. I've been calling him out for about 2 weeks now. He's literally just runs. He's a little wuss. And it's frustrating to me because he is one of the biggest snake oil salesmen that I know.
Come on, Oblate, drag your carcass in here. I'm hungry.
Oh, he's not coming in here unpaid.
He's a keyboard warrior. That's not going to happen, is it?
But
I have to say, unpaid shield, you're much better at the smack talk than I am.
But one of the things I wanted to definitely get
into
today.
It ain't smack talk. It's just truth.
Yeah.
Just, I can't picture you doing smack talk. It just doesn't work.
Come on, Oblate. I'm waiting, buddy.
I'll point out the logical fallacy.
All you're doing is wasting breath now. Guy, if he was going to come in here, he would have came in here the first 2 call-outs. Or matter of fact, if he had balls, he would have been in here before he started talking shit. That's the realization of it.
Hey, Q,
no offense to the bits that I love, but Oblate, you're a pussy.
Hey, Q, post a link to your channel. How about it?
Oh yeah. One of the things I wanted to get into was right to hand. I never knew who this guy was. I've maybe heard his name said a few times. As of recently, I guess he's started to make a name for himself. But the issue I have with him is he literally doesn't know anything, and he is the worst "you're wrong" type person. Yesterday, I was trying to say that earlier when I was saying, what was I saying? You can't tell someone how wrong they are unless you have realistically a better understanding of it than them. And even then, you're really not better. You would have to still need the alternative of it. You know what I mean? And it's kind of disingenuous completely. And again, why aren't other flat earthers having issue with this? That's my thing. That's the main thing I want to talk about right now. Why aren't other flat earthers calling out bullshit? For me, I'll call out Glovers that are full of shit. Matter of fact, last night, Unpaid Shill called me out. I had said something. I interpreted it wrong. I was wrong. Unpaid Shill said, hey, just so you know, Aaron, which was Aaron kept saying he wasn't a flat earther, but I'm going to say he is. He corrected me in regards to what Aaron had said. So it's not impossible. It's not like it doesn't happen on the globe side. Why doesn't it happen on the flat Earth side? You don't. I doubt you guys are going to answer, but
I just figured out how to unmute myself.
Yay!
Well done.
The thing is just people on both sides seem to forget that people can occasionally misspeak. You get all tang-tungled, and you may want to say.
I feel like you guys all have recently read my message to Planar Walk.
What was that?
I said I feel like this is about my recent message to Planar Walk.
I'm completely unaware of that.
Did he?
Yeah, I know, but I'm just saying there's this synchronicity going on right now because I was just trying to discuss with him about bullshitting.
Is he going to be debating at all? Cause I saw him at
Who?
24/7 Planner Walk.
Oh, he wants to have me on his show for a continuation of the debate we were having about like how society should be. And so, like, he was saying he was going to call me an anarchist naturalist or something.
A what?
And that's the position I'm taking. So that's supposed to happen on August 30th, but I'm not sure. I mean, I did write him a message about like the last debate I was there for, because it was kind of, I thought it was just like a loose debate. I mean, I didn't know I needed to be prepared. It was kind of like not a good thing. So I just said something about how I thought the whole thing was basically bullshit, because the people I was talking to weren't exactly correct in everything they were saying, but I didn't correct every little thing they were wrong about. I just went with the conversation for the sake of keeping the conversation. So there was like bullshitting going on both sides. So I had recently written him a message about how I felt like the conversation was sort of bullshitting on both sides, or we were kind of just floating ideas and being more philosophical, but then everybody in the comment section is commenting, saying that I'm mentally ill, specifically me. I'm mentally ill. I'm crazy. I'm nuts. Everything I did wrong. And I'm like, well, that's a lot. Calling me hateful and a lot of things. And then there's like 2 comments, like where they're being corrected, where they were wrong, and the people are very nice about it. And I was like, so that's kind of a bias I'm not comfortable with.
Yeah, it's weird how one of the.
You get what I'm saying, or did I just go over
no.
everybody's head again,
No,
or was everybody just like fascinated with how sexy my voice is, so nobody like listened to the context?
What?
I was
Oh, sorry.
It's funny how
I was
people turn to that.
watching midget porn, so I didn't catch any of it.
Jesus.
Can
It's
I
odd
just
how
say it's
people
nice
go
to
to
have
that
you
when
back
they
here.
don't have a something logical
Jokes
to say.
are better when they're funny.
Oh, much better. Much better. It even makes worth listening to. Yeah, it's
Sorry, I
amazing
was
how
actually making a cup of tea, but I was listening. About as risky as I would
Why
have
don't you guys
gone
drink
in.
some
Would you
freaking
read
coffee?
Would you read the shipping forecast for me?
Well, I just feel like if somebody's going to sit on YouTube and look for a flat earther to come and debate them on things, what they're basically asking for is this. They're looking for somebody to come up and try to bullshit them about flat earth stuff so that they can prove that they can't be bullshitted about flat earth stuff because they know too much facts and truths about why the earth isn't flat. And it's not really a fun game.
I don't think it's. Oh, that's not. Yes and no.
I mean, it is a fun game, but it's not a fun game if you choose to take the flat earth side and then everybody just calls you mentally ill. It's just what is that?
Well, that part's ridiculous. But at the same time, for me, it's more of an opportunity to show that what he's saying to all these other flat earthers, you get to see that he doesn't get it, and they get to see that he doesn't get it, and they get to understand or see how it actually works. The reason I wanted to do the citation thing and thanks to Blue, he'll probably do it, is the fact that when he's presenting his stuff, he does make people think he's correct in it, which is also why flat earthers defend him. But if it doesn't work that way, they stop defending him. They stop doing uploads. They stop talking as damn much. I mean, it's just, as far as I'm concerned, a little bit of it is personal. That's also because he's an asshole. But more importantly, it's kind of like he's telling me I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, which is kind of insulting.
Yeah, he's trying to bullshit a bullshitter, dude. That's all that goes on around here. Wake up.
Well, in a sense.
Well, except for the potato crew. Of course.
Well, in a sense, because like I said,
potato crew, they're
I
just
always
bullshitting everyone, including themselves.
I always think there's somebody out there listening that does give a fuck.
I'm out here listening. Hi.
But do you care? Does how you compress an image, and it's not taking a different shape and all that kind of crap? If you don't care about it, then I can see that. But when you care or interested, I guess would be a better word for it. It changes the dynamics of a conversation, especially if it's someone who doesn't understand it. I mean, you can deny anything you want. You can believe whatever you want. I don't care if you think the earth is flat, but the second you start acting as if you're holier than thou with that information and everyone else's information is complete crap, it's very disingenuous, and it's, in my opinion, it's almost dangerous at this point because someone's gonna do something stupid and try to fly or some shit. Yeah, who was that? Fuck. Oh yeah, Right to Hand said because we thought atoms were real. If he thinks he can fly, do I believe it? And I even felt like I had to say this to him. If you think you can fly, turn your camera on. Please start on the ground. That's like the weirdest thing in the world. If you can fly, why the fuck would you get on the top of a building?
Don't rip off Bill Hicks and act like nobody's going to recognize it.
I didn't know Bill Hicks did that.
Well, you better find out then.
No, why? Wait, isn't he dead?
It's worth it, dude. Bill Hicks is brilliant. He'll wake you up.
There's a
R.I.P.
particular scene of Bill Hicks where he basically does a Superman parody.
Oh, we lost another moron.
That's what. It's
That's what he says. That's what he says. He says, what kind of moron thinks he can fly and takes off from a building? Even birds take off from the ground. Who cares? So what? We lost another moron.
Yep.
Yeah, he definitely says it better than me. Much better.
Yeah, because he makes it real, dude. It's from the heart, dude. He's like, look, I'm tired of you people. Why are you dumb? Stop it. Thank you.
Well, flying squirrels start up in the trees.
At least Bill Hicks could recognize that animals are clearly more intelligent than humans.
Flying squirrels start from the trees.
Didn't Bill
Flying
Hicks
squirrels aren't
also
actually
say?
flying.
Yes, they're gliding.
Didn't Bill Hicks also say?
Just because human beings name things that don't fly flying for some reason doesn't mean that squirrel's flying, right?
I wish squirrels could
Swifts
fly.
can't
That'd be
take off
awesome.
from the ground, neither can bats.
Do we call an airplane, not a flying plane, and we call a flying squirrel a flying squirrel rather than a hovering or a floating or
Glide squirrel.
gliding? We call them sugar gliders. That's
Taking
another
the
name
piss
for 'em.
squirrel.
A gliding
Sugar
tree
gliders.
rat.
Lunch.
Well, I guess the main crux of the point of what I'm trying to say is why aren't more flat earthers?
It's going to be a hard lunch to catch. I just want to say.
I think more
Shotgun.
flat earthers should be ridiculing flat earthers more than we should.
Squirrel's good.
That's me.
Well, yeah, but they all subscribe to a lesser or greater degree to the same delusion. So why should they call them out? Because at the end of the day, it's like, well, yeah, I guess, that makes sense. That's my confirmation bias. Yeah, they are all subscribing to the same delusions. So why are they going to call each other out?
Because it's the.
Whereas we actually act. I think we actually
because it's
look
the
at things,
honest thing to do.
Yeah, realistically, that's
What
that.
honesty and the flat Earth you think go together?
Should.
Can I get a mic?
That's delusional, dude. Sounds like in a dream world.
What did you say, Jess?
Is my mic very low?
No,
Oh,
I
Although
just
that's
feel
better.
like
You were a little quiet.
At first, when you were coming in, it was quiet, but you're good now.
the personal vendetta against you, Dress. I won't let you talk.
Oh, well, he'd be used to it because he was getting talked over all this morning.
That's it. Getting paranoid.
I don't care that much.
Yeah, you do.
Yes, you do.
Nah. Never let them know it hurts. That's
Yeah. Oh, he's gonna cry when he goes home.
So
Though.
tell me this: if I flew to Costa Rica the day before yesterday, and when I flew away from Costa Rica back to New York, I could see Brazil burning. Does that prove that the Earth is flat? Because I think it does.
A,
reasons?
what height
Yeah,
were
of
you
course.
at? B, how far away was Brazil? And C, how high was the smoke?
I don't know. High, probably normal flying height for a flight from Costa Rica
did
to
you
New
actually
York.
see it was all burning, or did you see the smoke?
I could see fire. I don't know if I could see trees, but I could see fire.
So you could see a glow.
Yes, and smoke.
Yeah.
And also for people that don't know, they're doing a massive propaganda media blitz right now about the rainforest and the cats in the rainforest. I was pissed when I saw a couple of these. I saw one. The title was "The Endangered Panthers of I think it was Florida actually can't walk." Right? Literally, one freaking panther was like all sickly and shit. But just one, and the whole thing was about all the panthers and they're going endangered and sick. And then comes that fire, the fires in South America, and then you go and look it up. That's like a regular thing there. Like the size of the fire they have right now is not a big fire compared to things ones they've had in the past and or haven't even done that much destruction.
Yeah. No, I actually went and looked at the stats, and there are 3 areas in Brazil where they've got actually a lower level of fires at the moment, and there are 4 areas in Brazil where they've got a higher, but yeah, it's within, I think, sort of 20% of what you would class as normal activity.
And with that being said, kind of segues me into what I wanted to talk about, and is this climate change crap. Because
no, those fires are a direct result of people wanting to burn down the rainforest to create pastures because they want to grow cows or something.
No, some of that I will agree, and there has been a
so it gets out of
campaign,
control.
and
They try to go deep into the jungle and cut it out so that they can put a pasture, or some kind of like industrial space, and they burn it, and then sometimes that gets out of control, and so there's been a lot of that going on because I think probably because the way South America's economy is going, so it got out of control.
I'm pretty sure South America is shit.
We had 60% increase in forest fires in this year than what we would normally have. 60%.
Or maybe it's just like 60% more reported than normal.
No, it's what's on fire right now is 60% more than what would normally be on fire in any other given year.
But what would be normal if they're clearing land?
Well, they're not supposed to do that. It's illegal to do that.
They do it every fucking year to make.
Yeah, but they're not supposed to. It's illegal. Yeah, it's illegal, and they're not supposed to.
Kind of encouraged by the Brazilian government.
We leave it up to Brazil to do it when it's a world's resource for the whole world, and so like the UN should be protecting it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's weird. I think it's kind of here and there because it's kind of hand in hand with what's going on. Because I also heard a couple of these people that represent the climate change fight talking about how the fires are adding to this and doing that. And I was gonna play. I don't want to play it on here because it's from a TED Talk, but and that's also another upload I'm working on. That's this idea that we can ever get to a zero emissions is far-fetched to me. It's even worse when we're talking by 2030. Because that, if no one knows, the IPCC did a report announcing that we need to cut emissions down to zero by then, along with some other things. And otherwise, we'll go into a global warming catastrophe, basically, where
it's not getting it to zero. It's getting it back to what they class as the baseline, isn't it, Sean?
Say it one more time. You're low. You're low now.
It's not zero. It's back to a baseline, isn't it?
Nope. Nope. So there's it's a gradient of what they feel need to be done. Let me show you guys so it'll be a little easier because there's a lot more to it. It's not just get to zero. Get to 1/2 second. All right, here it is. I'll go ahead and share it. Find the file first. Oh, there it is. All right, so up. I just gotta find it again. Pictures. Oh, there it is. All right. So they came out and said basically between now and 2050, the end result will be zero. Let me show you guys. Why don't I see this in my? I always had this here. Yay me! Always so prepared. I'm gonna find this damn thing. Okay, so this is just one of them. Like I said, I kind of dropped the ball on finding the image, but I'll find it in a second. So one of the things by 2030 they want done is the CO2 emissions produced down by 45%. Then we'll be on. We want to be on. Damn, I gotta find the. Hang on 1 second, because I completely dropped the ball on that one. Yeah, you guys can see, I don't even know where my files are. 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves while I find this.
Yeah,
please.
it's. I thought it was. It's a net zero emission. So it's not a zero emission. It's a net zero emission
You
based
sure?
on a
Because
Yeah, I'm pretty. I thought I read this study.
I'm gonna come back and find it.
I'm actually looking at a BBC News article, so don't trust me too much.
Forget BBC. They ain't fucking scammers.
They're not that bad.
No, they're bad. They're real bad.
Let's see.
They're all bad.
No, they're normally quite good at actually putting sources.
Okay, well, are the protests in China peaceful or not peaceful?
What do they want for that day?
I'm just asking Druss if he knows.
I don't think it was very peaceful for the people that were attacked. I don't know enough about the story to be able to comment on it. I'll be honest with you.
Oh.
Well, given that the police are now using live ammunition, I'm kind of thinking it's not that peaceful.
All right, so
if they're getting shot at.
I don't think anybody got shot yet. They're using water
No,
cannon.
but they are using live rounds now. I don't think they've shot anyone yet.
the realization is that
yet.
the only way we'll find out is if the reporters report it, and then the reporters get it back to us.
Yeah, what are they going to do that?
Oh, they've already shown that they'll do whatever the fuck they want, and if they can't find a good reason for it, then no, they won't.
I've seen a lot of pictures of people calmly walking down the street with umbrellas.
Well,
yes, was a few, wasn't there?
That's also the same sense of how big is that country. They could have taken that from anywhere.
That's Hong Kong, so it's not that big.
No.
Well, how do you know it was Hong
Yeah,
Kong?
Hong Kong.
They have a lot of replica cities out there.
Where do they put the replica cities? Like in a
All
building?
over. Oh, everywhere. You haven't seen like abandoned places and everything.
China does have quite a few fully built
They
deserted
have
cities.
There's
fucking
no
London.
replica Hong Kong with billions of Hong Kongans.
How do you know? They have
What do you
a
call 'em?
London. They have Disneyland. They have a lot of crazy shit. Like it's just abandoned cities. Like
You have a hard
billions into
time.
these things.
Dude, all right.
You have a really hard time duplicating Hong Kong. I'm telling you.
Dude, what the
Well,
hell
they
do you think Hong
duplicated
Kong
Paris.
is?
You guys have never seen
Where
those?
did they duplicate Paris, the whole fucking country?
you guys have never
And
seen
then
that shit?
plus all the people in it.
You gotta
Guys have
go to
never
Hong
seen that.
Kong and look at the mountains that surround that place. It would be just about impossible to come up with
You can't
another
do that, dude.
landscape like
Wait,
that.
wait. So you guys have never seen these cities?
Where are they?
Okay, I'm gonna show you right
It's in a
now.
computer. Are they in a computer system?
No. They
no,
they
They're in a
built
fucking
throughout
computer.
China.
Watch, they're in a fucking computer. That's where
They've,
the truth
I know
is.
they've got abandoned cities out there that they built because they
They're
did an
fucking
over.
on a database.
Oh, okay.
Let's see here. Okay, so
You
here
got a
is-
terabytes.
Here's Paris.
I'm sorry, I'm a little stubborn. Don't hate me, love me, okay?
Right there.
Hell, Hong Kong Harbor is the size of Rhode Island.
I mean, they have a lot of shit. This is all China. This is that we're looking at right here.
Yeah.
I had a closet the size of
No.
Rhode Island.
The fucking Eiffel Tower's
There
not
you
in
go.
China, dude.
Yeah, you're right. But guess what? They got a fake Paris out there too. I tried to tell you, I wasn't kidding.
It's not a
Yes.
fake Paris.
Wow.
Why China's homeowners want to live in fake Paris? Yes, they do. 100%. These are every picture you're seeing right now is Paris or is China. It's fake Paris. They have all these little towns
it's Tower Bridge.
everywhere. Yeah, a lot of them are abandoned. But yeah, look, little Venice, London, Paris.
God, the Chinese are so weird.
I told you, it's freaking weird. But they
No,
got
they're
it.
just inscrutable.
This is how they roll. So
They're
yeah,
like-
I mean, they
This
can
is like some kind
literally
of
have
weird Las Vegas thing going
Uh-huh.
on over here. Don't they
It's
realize
very-
Las Vegas is tacky?
But that's like, and everyone thinks that way. It's like, oh yeah, there's a Pentagon.
And when people start flying to China for quickie weddings, I'm done.
They got a White House.
Is this a golf course? What is this? Miniature golf?
No, they're really just tiny.
No, they are full size and quite often empty
There's a
towns.
Taj Mahal.
Okay, well, I'm just going to tell you that the Chinese have officially creeped me out now.
I can't believe you didn't know about this. I could
I
do
mean,
a whole
I thought I knew
live
everything.
stream on this shit. That's how fucking much they got. They got other like they have built up $1 billion cities with no one in them.
They own
I knew
half of
about that,
Africa.
but I didn't know they'd done all these replicas as well. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
Okay, is China an UFO? Is it gonna take off at the end of the world with all the like rich people?
Not sure. You do also know that they are launching a fake moon, right? A satellite, a moon to shine on the streets. Oh God, where are you guys living? What rock are you under? Let me get this for you.
I was busy in another world.
Have they still got a space station up?
Yes, it's called the something.
No, well, they had two, but one
those
came down, didn't
dinosaurs those are still extinct, right?
you know, and they landed on
As
the far
far
side of
as
the
we
moon
know.
and everything. I mean, it's the Chinese who will surprise everybody because all of a sudden something will happen. It'll be, what the fuck was that?
I think
Hang
they're
on a
planning
minute.
on taking their whole country into space, dude.
You do know that
Little Earth facsimile
I mean,
up in
they own
space.
half of Africa. You know,
They can't
oh
take
yeah,
that.
they own
They
put it
only
this
own
way.
half the U.S.
Yeah, they've
you know,
invested
people always
heavily
called the U.S.
across
the
the
super,
world.
like the
I
superpower,
doubt
the
it.
number one. We're number one military. They're number one money wise. They're the richest. I'm telling
Pretty
you right now,
sure
they
North
bought
Korea is trying to
everything.
hit them with a missile over and over again for the last 2 weeks, so I don't think they're going to be taking over the world.
Again, that's a very large country. I don't think if just realize that you didn't realize there were multiple fake cities there. That's how large it is. No one knows that shit. It's just there. It just no one realizes it. And I just showed you the real known ones. There's
Well,
Hey,
down
I
on the
just,
web if you
I'm
stumble
voting.
across it,
I'm
you know.
voting for the fact that the Chinese are aliens. They came here. They made a little facsimile Earth with all the most best places to live, and at the end of the world, they're just going to take China up into space and float away, dude. Done with
here's the
this.
link. So
Oh,
this
well.
is the story on, and again, I just found like the first one I could, but there's videos and better publications that explain what's going on. But yeah, China cities plan to launch an artificial moon to replace streetlights. 100% real. They'll be launching, it says the dust light glow of a satellite would be able to light an area within a diameter of 10 to 80 kilometers. Let me see if I can
That's
find
the
out how.
sacrilegious.
China has the world's largest economy, but it only has one time zone.
If they put another moon up there, that's just going to prove that there's two suns.
And there's an artificial moon or sun pattern. Well, everyone knows about that. Actually,
China has the world's largest standing army.
that artificial sun patent, that actually almost made me go freaking Hollow Earth for a second. I was pissing me off. I was like literally upset I fucking found that. Let me see. I was trying to see
Shit,
how. What?
the one we got's making us too hot. What do we want another one for?
It's just the way it works.
To get rid of streetlights.
Oh yeah, that's the reason for the moon. Yeah.
Yeah, but moonlight's cold. That's okay. They can make another moon.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Since
Yeah,
when
we
did the
take
moonlight become physical?
When did it start hoovering
How are
up
they
all
going
the
to
dust
power
in
the thing? What
dirty
is
air?
it going to be like a big ball
It's
that's
a satellite.
solar powered?
No, it's going to reflect sunlight.
Yeah, it's gonna be just. It's like it's a.
Yeah,
well,
they're
I don't
gonna
know if it's
burn
gonna reflect it. Is
themselves.
that what it said? I didn't see that
They're
part.
going to
But
burn themselves.
It's basically going to act as a mirror, isn't it? It's going to
Yeah, I
be
don't think they
reflecting
can do this.
sunlight.
They're going to burn a hole in something.
the satellite would be able to light up an area. The vision of is shared by blah blah blah. Let's see.
Say goodbye to
According
fake
testing
Paris.
began a satellite a year ago. Involved a lot in 2009.
This is a good novel. I'm going to start writing it now. Chinese build fake Paris, burn
Okay,
it with
so
their
it's
own fake moon.
This has all been written before in
Set it
the
on fire with the
in the
fake
Mars
moon.
trilogy. If you've ever read Red, Green, and Blue Mars, the Mars trilogy,
Everybody's
all
Yeah,
this
stupid.
is spoken about.
Look at the example where they're talking about the Norwegian town and the computer-controlled mirrors to reflect the sunlight. That's the same sort of idea they're using for this.
Okay, this one, yeah. In 2013, 3 large computer-controlled
This
mirrors.
is one of these population control things where they pretend to be too stupid to realize this is going to kill those people.
Yeah, we're advanced. Oh, everyone's dying. Installed
Oh,
above
we
Norway's
didn't see
town
that
of
coming.
Blah, 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 to track the
sorry.
movement of the
It's
sun
actually a
and
death
reflect
ray.
it. Yeah, basically.
Unanticipated death ray.
And it's controlled by the Freemason Jew Illuminatis.
Oh, shit. Well, then it's not wait. anticipated.
I'd actually much prefer if it was controlled by Dr. Evil.
This is that space.
Yeah, they were going to use space mirrors to deflect asteroids by using the mirror to pump solar radiation at asteroids, hoping that it would make them move away from the planet. I don't know what that meant.
They were also talking about doing that to reflect light for the climate change, but they realized right off the hand it'd be in the billions. Like they were saying, it would be like 30 billion to build a lens large enough to do so, or to block it or direct somewhere else, or as much of it somewhere else.
All I got to say is they're going to put a big giant lens up in space that big. Then could they please take a picture of the Earth with it so we could prove once and for all the shape of it? Thank you.
No, because it'll be through a lens and it'll thus be distorted.
Well, at least Rob Steva could actually have a lens.
CGI.
Everything.
Just Fresnel lens! Look at the fucking size of it.
You've seen the film Gravity, haven't you?
Unfortunately, yes.
No, I refuse to.
I haven't either.
I don't watch films. Films are made by
That seems to be a very common question coming up at the moment.
Oh, if you want to avoid films, I finally got around to watching that Gerard Butler classic last night, Hunter Killer. Please don't.
Oh.
Shit.
I liked him in the one where his family got killed.
I've boycotted the entire film industry because of all the bad people that make them.
What about all the bad people that don't make them?
I don't give a shit.
Okay.
Or the good people that don't make them.
Oh, I finally got around to watching Avengers Endgame as well. I just about stayed awake through it.
Those are boring movies.
Yeah, that one was.
Just watch like YouTube. Me.
You ain't? No, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm not that compelling. It doesn't last that long.
Ooh, starting to sound like Arwen.
Wolfgang, you're going to make yourself sick.
Only films I watch are made by JM Truth. Are you some sort of fucking masochist? JM Truth. I tell you, he's got to have some bloody good eyes to see through those glasses.
Or
I think that person actually deserves a medal.
I was in a really bad movie once.
Well, don't tell us about it if it was that bad. Ooh, I found the fucking picture. Finally.
It's actually in 2 really bad movies.
But we don't want to know about it because we don't want to watch 2 bad movies.
Yeah, you
No, I've seen loads of bad movies.
Okay, so I'm
Not
going to
intentionally.
backtrack.
Well,
I'm going to backtrack right now
sometimes
because I found what I was looking for. And I don't think you're right, Dress. Yeah, Dress, I don't think you're right. Dress, you did say that, right? You and Farmer sounded alike.
I was the one that was disagreeing with you and I was proving that you're wrong, yes.
Ooh, proving that I was... What the hell? I can't even see who's talking. No, here's the thing. You guys sound alike. I don't know who's talking right now.
They don't sound anything alike.
Okay, yes they do.
Could be a voice racist.
I am that, definitely. Okay,
I'm
so
much posher than
by
farmers.
2030...
Grief, yes.
Look. By 2030... we have to be down 45% of the CO2 emissions that we have right now. By 2050, we need to be using 85% renewable energy. By 2050, we need to be at 0 emissions coal and this other one, oil, whatever, oil burning,
yeah,
whatever.
I agree with that. Yeah.
2050, we also need I don't even know what the hell that stands for, but it means we have to clear a lot of land for
square terameters.
Thank you.
You know what? I don't see what I don't see in any of those fucking pictures is any fucking trees being planted.
Oh well, see, that's a good idea. Afforestation is a good idea. The problem is it can't be done fast enough, or it won't produce results fast enough. Is what it is. And that the 7, say it again, terametrics. You said
square terameters.
Thank you. That area would be for afforestation, crops, you name it, and it'd be mostly for I guess
growing biomass.
Yes, thank you, for biochar. Yeah, that's what it is, biochar, and a couple other ones. Then this one, 2050. This is obviously the one that I proved. Who was it again? One of you guys, foreigners. Wrong. By By 2050, we need to be at 0 emissions. And you keep saying I was wrong, but let's look that up. And source. Yeah, how about that one? I want to source whoever said that, damn it.
0% of what?
Yeah,
CO2
that's what
emissions.
that's what I'm equivocating on. Because
you cannot have 0 emissions.
Well, guess what?
Zero.
That's what I'm trying to say.
0% of something. 0%. Zero CO2 emissions. Okay, you could have that.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's what it is. And well, I don't think we can because we're fucking humans. It says, okay. Huh? Well, nature does too. But the problem is they do some serious bullshitting when it comes to explaining these things and the capabilities of what they're looking at. Because, I'm sorry, it's just crap. I don't want to hear it. What? Okay, but how do you know that's not the first one? In that little swivelly line that right there, what does that mean? I'm gonna show you again. I'm gonna show you guys again. The one in the middle. So that would be. So wouldn't that be more of the net? So what you're saying is they're drunks. Huh. I just got confused. Poor sheep. I can only imagine. Oh yeah, we had a lot of fun. You missed that. You missed him not be able to get out of the hangout. Oh, I'll show. No. I'm going to show you guys in a minute. I don't want to use Vice. Yeah, $175 right now. Hey man, you should have grabbed it when it was hot. That's your problem. It says timetables for 0 emissions in 2050 emissions reductions. State of science for the ADP agreement. And I do want an apology when I find this. All right. What? I can't hear you. Huh? Oh, I hit the. It's because I hit the button. My bad. I hit the panic
Sorry,
button.
guys, you hit the button.
Well, I just said that, and they couldn't hear you before.
I can't hear. Everybody's complaining that they can only hear you. You're being selfish again.
I'm the only one talking with relevance.
Everybody in the chat is like,
okay.
Sean G, your hangout is fucked up. No sound from the panel. You can only hear you, Sean. What, Sean alone? Not enough for you? Sean, can't hear the panel.
Now all of a sudden, yay, Q is back.
So, net zero does not mean 0 emissions.
Sean, look at the links I just posted.
Means it's an offset.
Okay,
Somebody's
what
got to
about
give the
those?
chat
What
room a
about the
voice.
sources
Nobody
that
else
I
is
have
paying attention.
that say that 0 is 0 emissions and not saying a net next to it?
I don't know, but this is what I understand.
And you were looking at the BVC crap, or no?
No.
I'm gonna say you are anyway.
Yay, it's not my fault tonight. Woo!
Okay, I know exactly who it is now.
Oh dear.
Sean, they're really
read my citation.
They can hear you guys now.
Are you sure? Because there's like 100 messages about Sean, you're an asshole. Why won't you let us hear?
Oh, that
other
has
people?
nothing to do with it. I'm just an asshole.
Is that Dan?
Oh, yeah, it probably is Dan. He has a lot to say.
Hey, he spent way too much time trying to answer the "is he gay" question last night.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, that was a special moment.
Is that why he's talking to you so much, Sean? Does he have a thing for you?
Oh no, he just is constantly wrong about everything, and he feels the need to troll and act as if it's going to be cool. Yeah, it's drama. It's drama. Yeah, he starts just. I get triggered easy, and he knows it. It just the only thing is that he is so.
Uh-oh.
So I'm trying to figure out a word, but I don't even know how to explain it. He's a special guy. How about that? We'll call him very, very special. He thinks
obtuse.
You've had to heard this, Q, when he does this. He came in and he was talking about the Salton Sea test they did a while back, and he literally acted as if, on my panel, acted as if he was part of that test.
I know he does that, but he served hamburgers.
Thank you.
But he had, he had none of the information or none of the numbers or nothing.
Yeah. So he's talking about.
He was standing up on the beach. He was like, flat hamburgers.
No. He's talking about what
flat hamburgers.
We're talking, or he was saying that we could see
get a hamburger with a bottle of water, $5.
And the problem is, I go, Dan, what's the index of refraction of air? And he was like, well, we only need to go 70 feet up. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm asking you what the index of refraction is, and he literally, guess what? I have it recorded. You guys won't believe me until you see it.
Oh, wasn't you asking him what the refraction index in a vacuum is?
Yeah,
all the above, everything.
Yes,
I kept trying.
That was a lovely question, actually. I like that one.
Yes, that's a very good question. A very easy answer as well.
I thought it was a very easy answer as well.
He was using, but couldn't get an answer to that either.
Well, an even better question is, once you know what it is, what the hell do you do with it?
A better question is, could Gladys have answered it?
Better than him at 1,000%.
I'm going to remember that bloody mule's name if it kills me.
Don't sell old Gladys short.
What,
She's pretty slick.
With the banjo workers, I love the banjo.
The fact is that nobody could have possibly ate a hamburger at the Salton Sea because the Salton Sea smells like death.
Oh, yes. It's not that bad.
It is bad.
No,
you can get used to smells.
Well, it depends on where you are at the Salton Sea.
There's a place in my city that smells like that, but it's a chemical dump.
Again, but it really depends on where you are in the time of year.
I've heard it smells all the time. I've heard it smells about like a paper mill over there at the Salton Sea.
Yeah.
And which direction the wind is blowing.
Yeah, because you know where all the houses and little
it smells like rotten eggs, dude. It smells like
resorts are. Yeah, they don't. It's not there.
Eggs
they don't
that
have that
grew
crap
hair.
there. It doesn't smell there.
Eggs that grew hair, dude.
Who?
Eggs that grew hair.
Eggs that grew. Oh, okay.
It smells like rotten.
Whatever you're smoking,
like
I want
eggs
that.
Grew hair.
No,
I worked. No, I'll tell you. I worked at a Chinese food. Well, I worked at a Chinese food restaurant.
They don't have a fake China. They don't have a fake
Salton
Sea in China.
And I found a bucket of rotten eggs underneath a buffet that were growing hair. It was really weird.
How did you correlate that with the Salton Sea?
Salton Sea smells like rotten eggs.
It does not.
Eat a hamburger there.
That too.
No, it doesn't. I off-road out there.
I think you know what it smells like. What do you know what rotten eggs smell like?
I live 45 minutes from the Salton Sea. I off-road out
but do
there.
You know what rotten smells like?
No, because I throw shit away. I throw shit away way before it gets rotten.
Smells like sulfur.
If you ever get a chance, absolutely go to a
How is there no audio still? Hang on, stop.
I told you. See, this is what you get for not listening to me because I'm here to help, and that's all I'm here for.
Wait, hang on. I think everyone's wrong again. Literally, just hang on. I think I have to reset my shit, and I'm gonna find out because I'm telling you right now, I'm staring at my OBS, and you guys are being heard.
I think they can hear us now.
No, they can't.
Everybody in the chat keeps telling
us
they can't hear us.
If you would just fix the latency on your chat, we would know if this was real time or 10 minutes ago.
So, like
everyone,
he's trapped us in a CGI experiment.
No, they can hear us.
I'm sure I could eat.
Wolfgang said he can't hear anyone, but I think he might be trolling.
Well, they are, because I've just unmuted the live stream and I can hear us.
Wait,
Chris, you don't hear me, Chris. You cannot hear me, Chris. Shh.
That was Farmer's Boy giving it away in case anybody can't tell the difference between our voices.
I feel like if you
That's
can't,
right,
like,
Lloyd.
what is it? It would have to be that Druss is Farmer's Boy when he pushes his face up against the pane of glass.
Not quite sure I understood that.
Fuck if I know what she's on about.
See,
I just feel like that's how you could sound like Farmer's Boy, like how Farmer's Boy could sound like you, is if he pushed his face up a pane of glass, up against a pane of glass.
Would that be easier if I just talk like I'm from Norfolk, Mile?
Because you'd have to like plug your nose and create this deep reverberation at the same time.
Everyone's fucking with me, and they're getting you because people are like, I can hear, like people are going, Channel Q is right. We can't hear anybody. Fuck all of you in chat. Kiss my ass.
Hey, farmers, is bacon smoked pork bellies or some kind of fake ham?
I think they can hear us, dude. I think
they can, because then Dan said hamburgers don't exist in a vacuum. That's because
but they couldn't hear you before for some reason, and maybe it just fixed itself. It's an anomaly.
No. Like a long time ago, I actually hit my panic button on accident.
It's the latency in your fucking chat. That's what I said. I said if you would fix the latency and put it to ultra low, then we would know if they were talking about 10 minutes ago or now.
Wait. So that latency, ultra. You don't want ultra low.
Yes, you do.
Why?
You want ultra low so that whatever they're chatting about is exactly what we're talking about. So they're in sync. So that they are not chatting about things we said 10 minutes ago. Or 5 minutes ago, or 2 minutes ago.
I think. Well, I have a way of checking.
So if they say they can't hear us, they can't hear us right now. Not
They're
10 minutes.
Liars.
Or maybe next Thursday.
Go in there to your settings and just put on ultra low latency on the chat, the lag on the chat, because it's not like you're playing poker or anything. You need to hide your moves.
There's quite a lag.
Whoa!
Just turn off your DVR if you're worried.
Have you seen? Have you seen my my backgrounds? They're pretty good.
Sometimes.
What do your backgrounds have to do with latency?
Thank you.
I don't know. Why do you guys have to like?
It's like you just suddenly fished for a compliment for like no reason.
Damn right.
I had a girlfriend like that.
Very confused. I'm very confused as to what they have to do with latency.
God
Did you not hear a conversation with Aaron about a column of gas?
Latency doesn't affect your streams or your stream. It only affects how soon you get to see the chat.
Well, I'm about to find out how much lag is in my chat, so give me a second.
Never cross streams. Don't cross streams.
There is quite a amount of lag.
Because they're aware that they're about to make the Matrix 4, right?
I'm going to say there's going to be about 15 seconds, 20 seconds at best.
Yeah, I think it might be more than that.
You're about to make the Matrix 4, guys.
Farmers, that's just your Wi-Fi.
What's that?
Because the Matrix wasn't over.
So it's your Wi-Fi giving it more than a 15-second delay.
No, we're at 40. Yep, we're at 28 seconds.
There you go.
Yeah, never cross streams, especially in a men's room.
Yep.
Ew.
Unless you're
I
Dan.
don't go into the men's room. Thank you very much.
Well, apparently Dan had admitted last night that I guess him and somebody did some. I don't even want to talk about it because that's their business.
That got really weird.
Hang on, guys. I want to do this.
No, we're not in 5 minutes.
Are you talking about crossing streams?
No, it should have been a really simple yes or no question that turned into a story.
Hang on. So when I'm looking at the latency does what?
Just go to the chat where it says chat, the options for your chat, and it says ultra low latency on the chat because there's all those different options under your stream. And some of them are for your privacy. Some of them are for whether or not your video can be embedded into other people's videos. One of them's for DVR. One of them's for like do your thumbs up and thumbs down show. That page in there, it has a section for chat box latency. You want to have it on ultra low so that everything's happening in real time.
1 second, because I'm trying to find what you're saying.
It's like in your live stream page under like advanced settings or some shit. I don't know where it is.
Live stream, but that's what I don't know. I haven't had to do this, so that's why I'm asking you. In my the control
I've been like
room?
on this break, and when I first came in here, I was like talking to you guys muted, so I don't know if I'm ready. I'm telling you the best I can.
I do remember that part too.
I can't remember where it is. It's in your options for the stream. Like your YouTube settings for your stream. Maybe it's like advanced settings or something.
All right, I think I know what you're talking about. Give me a second, damn it. Because the only other way I know how to keep that lag from happening is just resetting my my control room basically. Right now I'm in advanced settings. I've already turned the DVR off. Okay, and I see the stream optimizations. And I've already picked it, so I can't unless I end the stream.
No, there should be a section with chat. And then you should have choices like ultra low latency, low latency, and it'll give you descriptions for what it means.
I can't do anything about that. I've already started the stream.
Oh, it doesn't let you do it in the middle of a stream?
No.
Well, you'll have to do it next time.
Oh, maybe.
Or whatever.
Put it this way. We're in real time, so... and if I respond to the chat, they hear it when they hear it. Realistically, they can all hear us. I know that now. Fucking assholes, man. I was like, oh my god, they can't hear us.
Yeah, So did we ever find out if Aaron last night was a Poe or what the fuck?
He was no. Aaron was a drunk.
Have you figured out whether or not I'm a Poe?
No, I think you're a real Glober. 100%.
Even though I wrote for Math Powerland.
Yeah, because he's a real Glober too.
Aaron sounded a lot like a.
What, did you read my text messages?
No, but this is how it is. It's not flat, and no one can provide me evidence for it. So I'm gonna go ahead and run with what I believe.
Well, I saw Brazil burning from Costa Rica.
No.
Yeah, probably. I guess it was 30,000 miles in the sky, dude.
That's what I wanted to say. This is what I'm gonna do. Just so everyone knows, I'm gonna be doing a live stream probably either tonight or first thing tomorrow on my Truth Army channel, because someone is echoing and you need to mute yourselves. And it's probably crashed because he does that all the time because he's working in his freaking garage and he pushed the speaker
it went
on.
As soon as he muted.
Yeah. So I'm going to be doing it from the Truth Army channel. All these, the FE core, their laser tests and all that crap. Dan's, the Waterman's, the films he keeps sending me, because they all go against everything they're saying, and they use it like it's evidence, and it's pathetic. Pathetic. I want to play the one that Dan sent me. The problem is I don't know whose it is, and I don't trust them, and I don't know.
What's the video channel called? What's the channel called?
See it. Let me grab it real quick.
Hey, Keith.
Yeah, just drop the link in the chat.
What's up?
I don't know what you saw, but it wasn't Brazil. Not from Costa Rica.
All right, guys, have fun. I got to get back to work.
We heard.
Wait.
All right, then, Crash.
You don't think I could see
Please
the
tell me
fire?
someone didn't say it.
The Amazon is big.
Yeah, I know, but that's just way too far.
It's only 4,000 miles at 30,000 feet.
30,000 feet, you can see 250 miles or so.
Yeah, and Costa Rica to Brazil is only 4,000 miles.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah, it's too far.
Way too far.
Damn sure didn't see Brazil.
Oh, I'm so happy. Okay, so I found it, and I
don't know if I saw Brazil. I saw forest fire. We could just say that.
Yeah, I'm sure you saw that.
Somewhere in the Amazon, I saw forest fire. Doesn't necessarily mean it was Brazil.
And Dan, if you'd like to come on the panel and be an adult, and
it does,
and represent your stuff,
huge, right?
You're more than welcome to. The issue I have is that you need to act like an adult, because I will boot you off my shit if you continue to act like an asshole on my panel. But this is your evidence, I guess you would say. So if you want to represent your shit, you have more than an opportunity to come on and do it. Here you go.
Seventh Day Truth Seeker is that guy that worked with Bob.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Is he an asshole?
No, I don't think he's a flat earther anymore.
You sure? Oh,
Who's that?
so he
I'm
was?
pretty sure he's the one who did the gyroscope test with the fog gyroscope.
I think
And
yeah.
after he
'cause
did
it
that
was-
test, he stopped being a flat earther anymore.
Yeah, because it wasn't Bob himself who did it, was it? It was this Seventh Day.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's who this guy
I think it
is.
was.
Seventh
Yeah, I
Day
think.
Truth Seeker did the fog gyroscope test, and that convinced him to stop being a flat earther. The one that he did the test with, that he talks about in the movie, that everybody conflates with the other one.
But
The
you guys
15
see,
degrees
you guys
per
see when this
hour.
is published, right?
7-Day Truth Seeker still a flat earther. He produces flat earth content all the time.
Yeah, because
Alright.
this is
This is
then
2 days
maybe-
old.
yeah, this is
Well,
from
then maybe I got the wrong channel
this.
name.
Yeah, this is
I
from
thought it was him.
from Dan the Waterman since the other night. But this is still. He might as well be a
That was that
Glober
guy's
because this
name.
is ridiculous.
What's the name of the guy I'm thinking of?
Let me get to it real quick. There are things on here that I want to definitely go over.
Well,
So
I was just trying to decide whether or not this guy's going to flag you for showing his shit, that's all.
Oh, I'm not going to play it. I'm just going to do it like this. Dan the Waterman made a comment, and he made the statement that he was pissed off that I had done those Neil deGrasse Tyson uploads. And the realization of it is that I came across those, and again, that interview that I took some pieces of, it was a 45-minute interview, not a 2-minute piece where he's talking to people very quickly or in a room of laughing people. And Dan the Waterman doesn't get that kind of stuff. So he sent me this, and he goes, even Neil deGrasse Tyson says you can't see curvature from blah, blah, blah. It's like, you don't get it, because they were joking around in that one. So in this instance right here, he was laughing, and the whole crowd was laughing as he says, it's flat. He's talking.
And notice in the bottom corner it said Comedy Central also.
Oh yeah. And this one, he's trying to explain to a bunch of kids in a fucking auditorium for a music, film, and interactive festival. So he's not being very technical about his shit. He's being funny. He's being pedantic. Is that right? Anyway, so
No.
again, no, wrong word, completely wrong word, wasn't it? Yeah, I thought so. So that's why I don't use
Being a
these.
dick.
I don't use these crappy ass, shitty flat Earth bullshit uploads. Dan.
No.
Yeah, this isn't the science, this isn't the data. This is you're technically right. It's a clown show, but it's a clown show made for children, so we don't have a big problem with it. People who are more sensitive like you might think that science should always be presented in the most rigorous way so that nobody gets any gray areas or confusion. But the rest of us are a little more sensible. We can handle a little bit of satire here and there. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and it gets worse.
Absolutely. Yeah, hey, Sean, you absolutely have to be careful with 7-Day Truth Seeker. Anything attached to FE Core right now,
Yeah.
because they flagged Slide Sparkane for a privacy violation, even though he only showed the public page of the FE Core chairs.
Why he can do
Yeah,
that? You
it's
know
off their,
why he
it's off
can
their
do
fucking
that?
website.
And
No,
the funny
but
part
do you know
is,
why that's going to stand? Because potatoes.
Oh yeah, they'll let him know.
Yeah.
I
No,
don't
but
mind.
it's gonna be fine.
I won't play it.
Potatoes,
So
man, they're
I'll
potatoes.
share the link with you guys, with everyone, and then you guys can all check it out, because there's some key points that I want you guys to find. If you're gonna watch it, you guys can watch. And this is another one. Oh my god! I mean, the crap Dan shares with people, like, you're just making yourself look bad, Dan. Because this guy, he's a pathetic man. There was one part in there where he had a train. There's a train, and he says this train's 7 miles away. It's not. He literally says that the train disappears from the bottom up while you're looking at the fucking train, the whole train. And even worse, literally, you don't, like, there's the most refraction in the world. Just go watch it. It's very entertaining, and I'm happy I knew that. So yeah, I'm gonna be doing the viewing of that on my other channel, where I don't give a fuck if they fucking flag it. So wait for that that link to come out and live stream to be going on. What's up?
Speaking of Dan, didn't Blue Marble Science just the other day talked about marine radar, and blew Dan's narrative of the 90-mile-an-hour Garmin 90-mile horizon Garmin out the window.
So he said something about that. So he talks to me like, we need to figure out this laser refraction situation we got going on because I got bigger things to go on. Like, I've been trying to talk to Blue about radar. And the first thing that I thought when he said that was, you know what radar even fucking is? Because, I like, you know, you guys think I'm kidding. Like, this man does not know what he's talking about. And he just blah, blah, blah. He smokes too much fucking weed. That's the problem. He sits there on the panels smoking bong load after bong load after. Like, and I don't have a problem with smoking weed. I smoke weed myself. But when you're that thick, maybe you need one less bong load. I'm sorry.
Smoke weed every day.
And that's just the way I feel about it. Dan really irks me because he does it on purpose. And I really don't care for it. It's just, don't care. I know why I can't. I know what it is. So I just figured it out. Because I'm using this stupid fucking voice meter. I don't know why. But I can't hear the watch page when I unmute it. Because I've had it unmuted for a minute now. And I don't hear it. But I know everyone hears me because Dan the Water Girl is responding.
Oh, now he's a girl because being a girl is a better insult than being a man. I don't think so.
At first,
I think being a man is far worse than being a girl.
It sounded good at first, and then I said it, and it didn't sound right. I do apologize.
Hold on a second. I think I can hear. Beep, beep.
No. It's that's me digging my own hole.
There I was digging this hole.
So why would it be an insult to be a girl?
That's why I retract my last statement.
What's wrong with being a girl?
Absolutely
Nothing. We just call Sean Edward Shovelhands sometimes.
Yeah.
Nothing's wrong with being a girl. He's a girl every weekend.
Oh yeah. Wait, what?
No.
This guy's jokes just can't be funny, apparently.
Okay, so here. Okay, put Dan. Get your ass on here so I can embarrass you some more. I don't mind embarrassing you.
Come on here and like yell at us like some rabid Pac-Man
I'll mute his ass.
monster.
I'll mute him. I don't care. He needs to act like a human, or I'll mute him. I'm very open about the fact
Here's
that I
the fun
don't.
part.
Say again.
Dan thinks he's winning currently.
I don't
He
yell
hasn't
at
said
people
anything.
when I'm yelling at him about how God.
He doesn't even know what refraction is, so how could he possibly know how to do tests or have an argument? You guys should. I'll go get it. God damn
Because
it.
he's landed on the chessboard, he's scattered all the pieces, he's done a dump, and now he's claiming victory. How it works.
You guys realize I've made these incredibly horrid videos about these monsters on the internet, right?
Ooh.
That sounds like a story about.
Is that the one you was working on before, Q?
Yeah, they're almost done. There's like it's so long. It's gonna take me probably another week at least, but they are horrifying.
So that
horrifying works
You guys
of
hear
art.
that?
I know what she's
What?
on about.
Hear what?
Sort of in a bizarre way, looking forward to seeing them. But
They'll be
I
very
don't know whether I'll
informative.
actually. I'm sure I won't like the content, but I'm still looking forward to seeing them.
Yeah, we're gonna see how they do.
I see what's
I don't
going
even have
on
any
here.
subs right now, so it's kind of weird.
What's going on here?
What's going on where?
Okay, so I'm now realizing that this stupid voice meter, which I will not be using next time, is all out of whack. It's like all wonky and shit. Hang on. I can hear. I just figured out how to hear me, but I wanted to play. Hang on. I'm gonna make sure I hear myself again. Oh, found it. All right. Okay, that's what it was. I had to mute myself. Let me know in the chat if you guys are hearing me double or some shit, because you probably are. I don't really care.
Fuck, Max.
Glad I got my headphones turned down. Oh dear.
Yeah, Max, that was pretty dick, and that irritated the fucking shit out of me to all fucking hell. Go, get the fuck out of here. That was uncalled for. I'm trying to figure shit out. That really pissed me off. Like, hang on, because I am really triggered right now. Oh, I got fucking voice meter on my fucking ears. Hang on. I got voice meter in my ears, so it's louder than normal. And you literally just gave me the biggest fucking headache in the world. I just want to.
Yeah, like I said, I'm glad my headphones are turned down at the moment. That was still loud.
I never actually put my headphone over my ear. I just put it next to my ear.
That was Max. I don't know if I'm. I want to hit him. I don't even know where he lives.
I'm glad I had
Because-
turned it down because I was listening to
damn
AC/DC earlier on. If I'd left it on that volume setting, bloody hell.
You know what, guys? I don't think that they should start school when they're supposed to start school this year.
Okay, so let me see if this
What's
works.
that?
Can you guys hear? Or let me see if you guys
This
can
is
hear
not
this.
going to be a good idea to send your kids to school on the first day
F
of
this.
school.
Give me 1 second. I know how to fix this. I'm turning this voice
That's a
meter
win,
shit off.
or like that I'm promising you. You guys shouldn't send your kids to school on the first day of school.
What the fuck? My son's
School's already been
started
in
school.
session for 2.5 weeks here.
You're a little late on that one. Thanks for the heads up.
Well,
All right, you guys, hang on 1 second, guys. Nobody can hear you right now, so you know. No, I'm resetting my shit. I hate that shit. Huh? But I'm not even. Damn. Oh no, I can't hear anybody. I forgot to change that one. Hang on. Like I said, I'm redoing the setting. My sound, I can't stand voice meter. It works great when I'm fucking just listening in on set, but
they can hear me.
Oh, everyone's good to go. Now we can hear everyone. My sound is all back to normal. Hey Max, I don't know if you can come back in or not, but you can come back in now because it won't be that loud to me. But that pissed me off, man. Still a little freaking irked about that shit. Don't worry, I'll calm down, people.
Deep breaths.
No one panic.
Of something.
Don't panic.
You know what? Yeah, I'm gonna wait for the upload.
Don't.
I've already embarrassed Dan enough with the compressing images stuff.
Is he going to come in here? Or are you going to
No,
go back
he
to the
won't.
global warming thing?
He won't come in here. He'd
He
have been
won't,
in here
yeah.
by now, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would have came in earlier.
He used to come
He's
in
damn
here.
sure not going to come into a place where Blue Marble can beat him up about marine radar again.
No, I mean he came in.
For any radar.
He comes in all the time. The problem is that I think he's too stoned to remember it usually, and this time he just did.
What does he mean if we were gay?
Oh, he's gay. He even admitted it. I got it on the film. I got it on recording.
What? As in very
Listen,
happy?
See, I was going to make a video. It was going to be like,
Hey, what's up, Kirk?
10 things that flat
fucking-
Earth
my
could
bad.
be a psyop for.
Huh?
And the number one was going to be
Jesus Christ. Okay.
Gay Men's Club.
Hang on, guys. I need to breathe a second. He's here. Whew. Got this.
Who's here?
Dan the Waterman.
Dan, did you join Flat Earth because you thought it was a gay men's club?
You're muted.
He's got to figure that out first. You can do it, buddy.
Dumbass.
Can you guys hear the dogs?
Stop beating that dog.
He's here.
Or whatever you're doing to it.
That's none of your guys' business. Just know it's business. Dan the Waterman.
So you guys think
Dan,
Snack to
did
the
you join
Future is some
Flat
sort
Earth
of
because you
authority
thought
on
it
my
was a gay
homosexuality?
men's
Is that
club?
what
No,
you guys are-
you said you were. It just came out of your mouth. You gotta figure that
You're
out.
so late, and that proves the globe, right?
You can do it, buddy. Is that what I said?
It's all
Right behind you, dude.
Wait. Dan, is that what I said? Did I say that proves globe? Did I say
It's
that
not-
anything to do with
it's
it?
not a point. I'm just looking for you to make points.
Yeah, we're waiting for you to make some points too. Been here
Well,
for what,
okay.
a year?
If I was gay, it wouldn't change the shape of your world.
No, it wouldn't.
No,
we were
not
just
at
we were
all.
just making fun of you. It was fun.
And I don't go after all your fucking weirdos you got on your panel and what's wrong with them.
You should,
So
because there's
let's
some
not
fucking
get into
weirdos.
sexuality. Let's not get into
Dude, you
not
brought it
get
up.
into
Also
Someone
why it
asked
was-
you. Someone asked you a question, and instead of you saying yes or no, you went into a 10-minute rant about being gay and teabagging people. You did it,
No,
not me.
I want you to know where the story came from.
Not helping.
Dan, if you want to know about the skeletons I've got, they're not in a closet. I keep them out on the front lawn.
No shit. Yeah, I know. It's like I wouldn't fucking tell you if I was gay. That's what I fucking do.
Okay. Well, you're right.
That's the other thing.
We're digressing from the reality of the fact that you just don't
The
understand a lot
reality
of this
is-
stuff.
Let me just tell you, the
It's
reality
cold
is
right
last
now.
night, as you were signing off, you pretended
I
that
pretended.
that you couldn't trust me. And I think
What? Wait. Trust you in what realm? And when have I ever given you the? When have I
just
given?
haven't given you
Oh,
any-
I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, you're right, Dan. I would never, in my wildest dreams, allow you into the fucking bunker. Okay? There you go. That's why you're not in the bunker.
It's not
It
the
is the
point.
point.
You
It's
just
100%.
accused me of wanting to be up to something, and it showed your own. It showed your
No.
own. Yeah,
I
'cause I don't even know what
don't
your fucking
trust the
bunker is,
type
and
of
I don't
person
care.
you are to keep my link in my server.
Well, you've made a
Cool.
mistake.
Did
You made
I?
a mistake.
You did.
Yeah.
So
I don't think so.
you're not burning bridges everywhere you go.
Maybe on purpose.
Okay, well, guess what? People like that are to not be trusted. Jesus Christ, you not help. Like you don't realize you don't even help yourself when you talk. And Shill, you're super. You're hot micing it up. Hot mic.
Oh, okay.
You should boot him like you did the other guy.
No, because he didn't.
Q, it's nice. It's
He
nice.
didn't
to see
he on
you're
all that.
You're a little bitter and sort of in,
Did I
negative
muted the
mode,
wrong
but it's
fucking
nice to
person.
see you're back.
Unmute yourself, Q. I didn't mean to. I was trying to get Chill
Trying to
and
mute Shills, weren't you?
and Dan, the water guy.
I'm looking for
Thank you.
Negator if he's around, and
Hi, no. You need to focus on us because you keep calling out people far.
You said we're doing this later, dude. You were afraid to show my video. Get a grip.
I'm going. Yeah, I'm going to
grip.
show the video on my other channel.
Why don't you
but I
show
can
the Neil
talk
deGrasse
about it
Tyson?
here.
Why don't you?
I
show
did.
The Neil
I
deGrasse
did.
Tyson?
I did.
No, the one that you
did.
and I know about, not the ones you posted. The
Hey,
ones you
Einstein.
ignored.
Einstein.
The
I
ones
showed
you
yours.
pretended didn't
I
exist.
showed yours.
And
he did.
And I explained how. I explained the reality.
But then it's just a comedy, right?
It was on Comedy Central, you fool.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't? Or did you not look at what you posted? Jesus
Just
Christ,
looking
man.
at what the man says, and you're claiming I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
look at
It
what
was
the man
again.
says.
And what did I tell you
But
last night?
Is this what the man said when you went to him and you said, "Hey, Neil deGrasse Tyson, I'm confused about the shape of the Earth, and I was wondering what blah blah blah," and then that's what he fucking said to you, or is this just some shit you found on the
I wish I
internet
could talk like
that
you
you
did
know
when you're
looks
back.
like
I
a
wish I
clown
could-
show,
I'll
so
talk
then
with
you're
you.
exploiting it
I'll
like
go.
it's a legitimate clown
I
show,
will
and you're
Hey.
not adult enough?
I'm gonna tell you right now,
or
Dan. You need to start
legitimate
calming down with that
to
shit
admit
and
it.
start coming up
I
with some
think it's
real
a
shit to
maturity
say.
thing,
Don't
actually.
tell
I'm
me
gonna take
shit.
back
because Q doesn't
all
know
the
what she's
other
talking about.
adjectives.
She
Q
does.
knows what
She
you're
does
talking
because I literally listened to her say everything correct right now. Second, I listened to
Thank
you
you.
not be correct. Now, would you like to get into it with Blue Marble? Because apparently you have something to do
Evidently, I
with
would.
this.
Yeah.
And can you mute yourself? No, we don't really care about the conversation. Again, it's that the Dan is here, so it's gonna be fun. So don't expect
Right.
people in the
He's
chat.
not.
Don't expect any answers or logic.
Hell,
or-
don't expect to be able to hear us finish our sentences with Dan on the panel.
No,
I'll
you will
finish my
because
sentences, damn it.
I'm gonna fucking mute him every time he does that because it's unnecessary. And I don't care
So
if
we
anyone
won't
says
be getting cleverness and intelligence.
Are you turds going to set me up for later? Should I get off now? Or what are you? What's
Oh,
your
that's nice. Turds.
Why'd you
Says
call
the
us
shit
turds?
Hey, Dan.
Fuck
Well,
you.
because you're being
Hey,
turds.
hey, Dan,
You're
I'm gonna tell you
challenging
right
me
now.
for
Hey, Dan,
later or
I'm gonna
now?
tell you right now. You're either gonna act like a fucking adult on my panel, or you can leave.
Later or now?
You
That's fucking off.
You can shut the fuck. Yeah, I can see how this is gonna go. Dan, last warning. I'm going to mute the shit. I'm gonna boot you for my shit if you can't act like a goddamn adult. Period.
Of
all the
all
fucking
the
is
things
to
you
it.
could call us,
Go get
turds.
into,
Why
go
on
get
earth
into your
turds?
game mode. I'll
Again.
come around later if you need
Again,
me, all right?
what did I no? If you can't be an adult right
Fucking
now,
twat.
you're not gonna ever be welcome on my shit again because I'm getting sick of you acting like a little fucking kid every time you're here.
You guys,
Yeah.
Yeah, again, you don't
beg
shut
me
up.
to come on later. Thanks.
Oh no, I don't expect you to come on. I don't need you here to show how wrong you always are.
He already left.
Left. Why'd you call
Good.
us turds? not
I'm just sitting here eating my yogurt and granola.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's my fault. I don't even know why the fuck I told him to come on here. I can.
Hey, farmers, turds is
I
like the
don't believe
lowest
that you are
echelon of things
eating
we've been
yogurt
called
and
lately. isn't
granola.
What was that?
it? Turds is like the lowest echelon of things we've been called lately, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true.
Yes,
That's true,
'cause
yeah, a
It's
little
been
bit.
a few weeks since we were called fuck sticks. So yeah.
Is
Turds
Vlad back?
yeah.
Wait, is Vlad back? No one knows who Vlad is. I know you know who
I
Vlad
don't
is,
believe
channel.
that he's eating granola and yogurt. I need proof.
You didn't hear him going.
So maybe he's just a good maybe he's just a good voice actor.
Could have been.
No, at that point,
marshmallows.
at that point, I was shaking some of the granola into my yogurt. At that point, that's what was
Q,
making all the noise.
just so you know, Q, he has done the Pete Shea verification, so he is real. He's real.
Do you know that's the one person I wish
like to
wouldn't
ask
keep
for
doing
proofs for things that people could actually prove.
I want. Oh yeah, so I completely forgot what the hell we were talking about. For
radar.
We were talking about Dan, the waterman.
That's why my
How
brain's
come he
all
has a
fried up.
globe? How come he has that globe behind him?
That's what it is. I want to know if he's a flat earther or not. That, you know what? I'm going to invite him to the one later on Truth Army, because I'm going to play I'll play my recording.
You know what he is? He's like that guy from the Popeye cartoon that eats hamburgers all the time.
Yeah, but no, because he doesn't. That guy just wants to eat hamburgers. Dan wants to cook hamburgers and start shit. I'm telling you right now.
Oh,
He said
he'll cook them too. He'll cook them.
like it was very odd. I'm not sure if Shills heard him, but he basically said he's not a flat earther. He's not a globe earther. He's using this as a platform to get his shit across.
Yeah, he's a potato. Anyways,
it's pretty bad.
I remember him saying something. I remember him saying something pretty contorted, but I don't remember exactly what it was. I was starting to get a little brain burn going by then.
Yeah, he does that. I have it. I have it recorded.
potato, perpetrator of this annoying thing online.
And Maxwell, for the record, I'm still pretty pissed at you, asshole.
I can't say something like that and you just ignore it.
I wasn't. I'm not. That's my fault because I wasn't listening because I was looking at Max to yell at him.
Ready?
Huh?
Ready?
Yep.
Potato. That's what they are. Potato. Perpetrator of this annoying thing online.
Wow. It all just came to fruition. It's like it all makes sense now.
Is it potato or potato?
Oh, Jesus
Christ. As I call them, spuds.
Yeah, foreigners.
Don't worry, it could be. It could
Actually,
be
no,
worse.
Spuds are stupid people under delusions.
Yeah, he got me out irritated, so now you guys have to change the subject and figure out something to talk about. And I need to. Okay, so you're right.
Damn.
If farmers, it could be a Welsh potato. It could be a potato.
Oh,
is that spelled the same though?
Oh, why is that then? Oh, that's lovely.
Okay, I feel like we just decided that a good stream isn't necessary. It's my fault.
It's a brilliant stream. I don't know what you're on about.
Streams across.
I had no. In the sense, like,
necessary.
I had. Oh, my bad. I had so much I wanted to talk about, and I'm honestly forgot everything I wanted to talk about 30 minutes ago.
What's wrong
Well,
with
just
you?
take 5 minutes and start again. You know.
Yeah, we're
I want
here for you.
I actually want to say something serious.
That's
to Big Blue, which is there's another really, really good manufacturer called Inmarsat.
Yeah.
So they do satellites communications, marine radio communications. I think they also do fishing field awareness systems. So that's sonar.
Yeah.
And also some radar stuff as well.
I'm really disappointed that Dan the Water Boy decided to run off or whatever. Because I really was looking forward to watching the Garmin video with him.
If you want, bro, I'll figure it out. I mean, let me see how long have I been fucking streaming? I feel like I've been on here for days. Maybe it's just you guys.
2 hours.
Okay, so
you can think of it as days.
I'm gonna get it's like manifest as a day. I'm gonna go for a little bit longer, but I'll try to go do that stream sooner. And I'll let you guys just go at it, because if me and him started off, it's gonna be a shit show right away.
Well, he threw down that challenge the last time I talked to him about the damn radar. And
he said something about you last night.
I'd like him to watch this and now take it up with Garmin if you don't like it, Dan.
He said a lot of things about you last night, but I swore secrecy on most of them.
Did he?
Oh, I got it all recorded though. Like I said, I'm gonna do we're gonna do that live stream on the other channel, because later on, guys, I'm going to show, like, I do a lot of recording, and everyone should know that. And they still talk and say the dumbest shit. We're gonna watch that later on. I'll let you guys go at it with the GPS stuff, and then we're gonna go on a flat Earth correction kick.
It only takes about 90 seconds, so.
Well, the problem is that there's more than one person, so it's going to be like 120 seconds.
Oh, okay.
10 seconds will be us laughing.
How do we play the audio though? That's
it's perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my headphones off, play it through my speakers into my microphone. It'll work.
I've done that before too.
I was trying to, and for if Alan's out there, anybody that's part of the Aussie perspective, that's what needs to be done if you're trying to play a video. I tried to talk. He went on and he had a lot of double audio, and I was trying to explain to him why he was. And the problem is I can't type. I hate it, and I don't know what system he has. Oh, and I know he was using voice meter. People, voice meter sucks. Thank you. But yeah, I'll play it through my speakers that way.
Yeah,
Sean G, the truth, not sponsored by Voice Meter.
What you got to do is get everybody in the chat to mute themselves and stay muted until you finish playing it.
Yeah, you ever tried that?
I've done it. Yeah, right. Yeah.
No, it's actually quite easy.
You got the really big button, Sean.
Well, it's a lot easier than that. So what you do is you go to your settings and your headphones in the Hangout. Change it. Just completely change it. So I don't hear any. No one will hear you, but you guys will hear me, and the chat will hear me. That's how you do it. You just change your settings.
Yeah, I did that by accident the other day. It took me 2 days to figure out how to listen to anybody again.
Yeah. That's how I learn a lot of my stuff. I just figure it out, and then it takes me time to get through. Yeah, it's. Let me see. That's probably the only way I can think of.
Lip reading in the process.
Let's test it because it's been a while since I've done it. I haven't tried to really. I was looking for something earlier. See, this whole day just seems off now that Dan was here. Every time he comes in, it's just like
Are you guys sure
anarchy.
that Polaris, like if the Earth was an infinite plane, that it wouldn't eventually meet the horizon if I went far enough away from it?
Well, the best part is last night a guy named
Are you
Erebus.
sure the distance to Polaris doesn't matter?
Oh yeah, a guy named Erebus made a very interesting point last night, and he said, "You can see stars near the horizon. How far are those stars away if it's an infinite plane?"
Ooh.
Oh, really? That did come up?
Yeah, I don't think he was talking about it being an infinite plane so much, but I know I wanted to say something. But it does bring up a really good point of why do you see stars on the horizon and all that stuff, and them not. I mean, there's a multitude of these observations on a daily basis that we're seeing, and Flat Earth is just not willing to cede to it, and it's fine. And again, I don't mind that they do that. Because
let's think about that.
I know which ones are really for truthers.
Let's think about that and not talk about the people. Let's think about the idea.
Well, Dan does that. I'm aggravated.
I don't care. You're doing it now.
I know.
So stop. So if it's an infinite plane and I'm seeing stars on the horizon, the stars are still millions and millions of miles away, but nothing is getting in the way on the surface. No buildings, no trees, no mountains, right?
But you still can't
for
see
infinity
power for some reason.
Well, I'm just saying. Well, no. I'm just saying it's kind of maybe it's not. What is the probability that if the plane is infinite and a plane of trees and mountains is infinite, that all along this entire line of sight I can see this star on the horizon with nothing getting in the way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do I say things in ways that nobody can understand?
No,
Sometimes
actually, you're raising an interesting point, because what I'm trying to work out is whether if I traveled east or west, would I see actually then the star rising in altitude as I moved east or west? Because I'm trying to picture this in my head as you move along this infinite plane, or if you move north and south, would that star rise in elevation, go up, eventually become literally like a pole star, and then drop behind you?
Now, I just had an interesting thought. You guys were talking about this infinite plane thing. Okay, and bear with me for just a moment. If we've got an infinite plane with a dome over it, how the hell can we have air pressure?
Technically, the infinite plane and the dome are exclusive, so they don't go together. You either have the disk with the dome or the infinite plane with no dome.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't care about that one.
Yeah,
you sounded like you were on a 1976 radio in Fallout.
Q has a certain something for the infinite plane theory.
It can't. It's impossible.
And how do they know it's infinite if they've never been to the end?
Oh, whoa.
That's
No,
the
you're
problem
asking.
with
Yeah,
having never been across
yeah.
Antarctica.
You're first of all, you're asking logical questions now. So, calm down, cowboy.
This is no place for logical questions. Good grief.
See, the infinite plane does include this ice wall, though.
Yeah, they don't believe in the ice wall.
Yeah, the ice wall is
yes, sir.
is present in the infinite plane.
I listened to part of the replay from last night. Can you? Who in the hell was that sack of monkey nuts that couldn't figure out gas pressure?
Aaron, the guy that got. Oh, that's what. No, fuck, f that. I'll play the shit out of that. Him. Yes, we're about to listen. We're about to listen to Aaron get stuck.
Okay, hang on. If you can record this, if you have the ability to record what he's going to be playing, you want to record this clip just for your own amusement.
Even better than that. I will upload this after this, and you guys can steal it, mirror it. I don't care, off my channel.
That'd be awesome.
Go on then.
It was amazing. Brian, I don't know what the hell is going on, but you said, like Channel Q said, you sound like you in 1921 Fallout and like behind the bunker, behind a tank, yelling through a loudspeaker.
You remember that one where you're in the one but you're haunted by this radio guy inside your head after you wake up from hitting your head and you just can hear this radio going off in your head?
Is this
remember
going
that
to
part?
make it any better?
Is that better?
The Fallout
Yeah.
game.
Aaron's stuck.
Damn you. I was going to say, could you say this is the voice of the
Okay,
Mr.
so we're also going to test. We're at the same time.
Debate. It's just set up for that.
Okay, so loud. Okay, so we're going to do it again. This is about 1 minute and 29 seconds. So what I'm going to do is, wait, hang on. Can I trust you guys to not talk through this?
Oh, I'll go on mute.
All right, muting.
Okay, so I'm switching out my speakers. So now if you guys talk, you're going to kill everyone. You guys are about to hear it now.
Debate. It's just set up for that gotcha and shit show.
Okay.
Come on. I'm gonna press you on.
Sleep on your side so you don't throw open your mouth.
I gotta go. Yeah, I'm out of here. Fuck that.
Tag me in the chat on YouTube. Yeah.
Okay.
Come on.
Aaron, it was good talking to you. Go ahead, bring your shovel. I'll bring the front end over.
I mean, obviously not everybody gets along, you know, but if it's set up in the form of debate, it's just set up for that gotcha and shit show.
Wait for it.
You know? So,
Yeah, but it's an informal debate. So it's not
Okay, how do I leave? I can't leave the show. How do I get out of here?
Oh, I have to have this on recording.
Jose, kick me out.
Oh
Kick
my
me
God!
out.
No, Jose, please don't. Please don't.
Don't
Get me out of here.
leave him in.
clicking the name of the screen and there's 3 buttons. One is
I can't even quit the show.
click on the screen.
Aaron,
Your phone is off and you're still going.
tap your screen.
I'm muting. I'm already muting.
Aaron, tap your screen. 3 buttons will pop up at the bottom. Hit the middle and the little phone handset. There you go.
Oh man,
That just happened. Yeah, sorry about that in the chat. I forgot to mute the desktop. But yeah, that was Aaron. Aaron is very, very special. So what Aaron did.
How do I get out of here?
All right, put my headphones back on.
Yeah.
Now that wasn't even
special for sure.
Yeah, that wasn't even the worst part. Because he kept throughout the whole night defending Dan. I don't even think he knew who he was talking to because he kept calling everyone else someone else. And then like at one point he goes, I'm protecting my friend, right? 10 seconds later, he's like, someone's like, that's Dan. He's like, who's Dan?
Yeah.
Aaron is a very special guy. Very
That's what
special.
Mum said anyway.
It was bad. I have no. That was insanely special.
How do I get out?
And I'm telling you guys right now, that wasn't even the best part of the hangout. There was so much more that was going on and happening tonight. Watch. It's gonna be awesome. Like I don't want to play too much. Go ahead.
my favorite part of that whole "I can't leave" bit was when his camera came on and you see a great big eyeball going, "I can't leave.
Yeah.
I can't leave."
Where is it? I'm looking at it right now. I'm trying to get to that part. Yeah, it looks like as soon as I saw it last night, the first thing I thought was that looked like some Blair Witch shit. Like
what with the snotty nose?
I'm telling you right now, you guys could not hear the panic in his voice, like the feeling of it, like it really was. It was insane. I don't like. Oh my god.
Yeah,
Best
when
thing
I
ever.
saw it, I immediately thought Blair Witch myself.
Mm-hmm.
You know that clip where that girl's going, "I'm so scared
Yes.
and I'm cold."
That was the one. Favorite one ever.
I love
No, I
those
love
shots.
that. I
Where is
love
it?
that film.
I love those
There
shots
it
where all
is.
you see is just the eyeball. That's great.
You guys see that? It's kind of dark, huh?
Looks like a peeping Tom at the Motel 6, doesn't it?
Oh God.
Oh, it was best.
Wait a minute, Big Blue, could you do me a favor?
Yeah.
Could you say we'll leave the light on for you?
Leave the light
Who
on.
muted me?
You had to
I was
mute.
unmuted.
I didn't. Well, no, because everyone muted themselves. Did you not? Did you?
No,
mute?
I didn't. I
Well,
didn't mute
someone
myself.
chose to do it for you.
Yeah,
it wasn't
somebody
me.
must have done it for you. Didn't
That
they?
was me.
Ah.
Well, keep your hands off my mute button.
Ooh.
What's your name? What's your name? Oakley.
Okay, so that's Aaron. Aaron's our
Talking shit about somebody again.
because these people Dan and Aaron triggered me so much last night. They deserve it.
No,
I'm angry.
You're not triggered. You're laughing at him and calling him stupid.
Because he was doing it to me. Monkey see, monkey do.
I listened to
I've seen that
Aaron
happen before.
Huh?
I listened to Aaron not understand what a column of air is for about 35 minutes before I just had to stop listening to it.
Oh, it's painful, isn't it?
And besides, he's not even
bro.
supposedly he's not a flat earther, so.
I don't understand how that incident with that guy saying "kick me out of here" has any resemblance to that scene in the Blair Witch movie, but okay.
Oh, well, maybe because you were expecting to see something and we weren't when it happened. Like he just popped in out of nowhere. Was like, I can't get out. Somebody help me. It was amazing.
Yeah, he was a big letter for most of the show. Did he actually put his face on when he was trying to get out?
I don't even think he meant to.
That was the screenshot right there.
Yeah, I don't even think he meant to though.
He was on camera and you could see his face, and that's why he looked like that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because I don't know what you're talking about, so I'm just having a hard time figuring out.
Oh yeah. If you listen to Jose's last night, you'll hear him talk, but that was during the quote unquote after show.
Jose's?
Huh? You say who's?
Jose's?
Yeah.
Yeah, I said Jose's like everyone heard what I meant to say. Who's Jose's?
I was like, what did she say?
Jose's.
I have the whole after show, but I don't want to play it or play too much of it because that's Jose's, and I know he wants to play it. So once he releases it, then I'm going ape shit with the after show stuff. But tonight I'll play a few of the other ones. But you know what, Q, you're right. I need to stop until later on.
You're just the one who said you wanted to talk about so many things, and you didn't talk about them.
And they got me all frustrated.
On personalities.
Because they got me all.
I just keep wanting to remind you that quote about small minds talk about people, medium minds talk about ideas.
I know, and I don't want to be talking about them.
What a big mind! I'm not a big mind. I'm a medium mind.
But at the same time,
big minds talk about
that Aaron getting locked in that meetup, that was some funny shit.
Yeah, I don't care who you are, where you were born at, or where you live now. That was some shit.
It was pure comedy.
If you can get
I
into
had
a
an
hangout,
experience like that in Gem Panda's server once when I was first in there. Some shit went down and I didn't know how to hang up from the call, and I got freaked out because somebody was being a creep to me. But
that's different.
It was
No,
a similar
it's
experience.
that's not nice.
I'm pretty sure Aaron's computer, just like everybody else's, comes with an Oscar Foxtrot switch. All you got to do is push that when all else fails.
Yeah.
Or throw it up against a brick wall.
That'll work too. Permanently.
Well, surely
This is
just
not
close
honest
the
advice,
window
you
that
know
this
it.
is opening. Wouldn't that just hang a call up as well if you close the window down?
Yeah.
I mean, it's you know, if you've got
Force stop.
No.
Yeah, if you've got in a
I think
hangout, you can get out of it. Surely, you know.
No, you can't, dude. Listen, I spent like a year out here on Flat Earth watching Flat Earthers get mad at other Flat Earthers, get muted by other Flat Earthers in a hangout, and not be able to figure out how to get themselves unmuted. And then the whole like an hour of the show would be like, you got to unmute yourself.
How does that happen?
He doesn't know how to unmute himself.
Oh, I remember that. But that was like inside here, though.
That was like
You are dealing
everyone
with a
did
certain
not. If you muted somebody,
demographic of people.
they would not know how to unmute themselves for the
Well,
rest of
you
the
know,
show.
I think the Earth is flat, so I suppose
That's what I'm
that would
saying,
confuse
dude.
them.
You need to use your handicap. You got to put handicap ramps up. You need signs.
It's handy capable.
Fine, whatever.
It's like those rails you put down a bowling lane.
Need railings.
Oh yeah.
Differently
Railed
abled.
up.
We need specific parking places.
Yeah, my two stepsons, when they first started going bowling, they had the rails up and they're going, look, we can do better than you, Dad. I said, go on then, put the fucking rails down. We'll see how good you are. Yeah, that didn't work. Bless them.
If your boys ever need a lesson in humility,
Yeah. Oh,
That's
look,
not
we're
the
better
same.
than you. Yeah, put the rails down then. You can stop curling them in off the
boys-
fucking rail.
The boys have potential. That's not a fair analogy for flat earthers.
No, flat earthers don't have potential, do they?
Sure they do.
What?
I mean, stand-up comedy is still potential.
landfill? Yeah, you could use them as landfill, I suppose.
I mean, it's
No, I
comedy
mean,
gold.
honestly-
they've got promising careers.
I stand by
As
this.
what?
I stand by this when I say that flat earthers are not stupid. They can be gullible for believing the horse shit, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're stupid. Because the flat earth, some of these people can talk pretty slick talk.
Riley.
Yeah, but it's no good talking the talk if you can't walk the walk.
Or in some of their
there's
cases,
between-
prance the prance.
Dan, who openly said it himself, not us.
It shows there's a huge difference between being able to talk the talk and being able to see and being smart. Look at Anthony Riley, the guy who's like, I don't understand maths, so maths aren't real. It's like,
Sounds stupid to me.
The guy
That's
who
pretty
says
simple.
that words are very important, and then he keeps getting them fucking wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
Then argues over the definition of the word "and." I mean, take him out and fucking shoot him.
Oh.
But the thing is, we're not talking about all of them. You know,
No.
I'm talking about. I think at least half of them are not stupid. I think they're just gullible, or they've been sold a bunch of bullshit and they fell for it.
Are you sure that
We
gullible
all-
and stupid aren't synonymous, though? I mean, come on, aren't you just being semantical here?
No, they're not. They're not
Don't bring
synonymous.
semantics into it.
I think they are.
No, I don't think they are because I know some pretty smart people that are pretty damn gullible.
No.
Shilzer,
that
are you
means
talking
stupid.
about flat earthers in total, or are you talking about the YouTube artist of Flat Earth?
I'm talking about flat earthers in general and humanity in general, because people
Okay.
can be gullible and
Yes.
still be smart.
Yes. No, you're right. There are various different types and levels of intelligence.
Well, they weren't
Of
smart
course.
enough then.
Yes. You
There,
can
there
be-
are some. There are some that are dumber than a bag of hammers.
I mean,
There are
I
others that
used-
are. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I used to work in Cambridge, and obviously over here in Cambridge, it's one of the university cities. Now, where I used to work, our offices were in amongst what is basically student accommodation, and the nearest pub that was only a couple of minutes away, we'd nip in there for a pint at lunchtime, and it'd be full of students, and you'd listen to them talking. And these are students who are studying for degrees and masters and everything else, and obviously, clearly very intelligent people. I wouldn't trust them to change a fuse in a fucking plug. They were so gormless. It just, yeah, you couldn't help but overhear some of their conversations, and we just sort of look at each other and go, "Fuck me, that's our country's future sitting
Look-
there," you know.
Well, again, that's and I lived for quite a while in a university town here in the United States, and yeah, I had a lot of these students in my taxi. A lot of the professors, you know, university administrators. My ex was an associate dean of the honor college for this university, so you know, I've been around the environment a bit, not you know, not totally immersed in it, but there's a distinct difference between intelligence and gullibility, just like there's a difference between intelligence and wisdom.
Yeah.
You know, intelligence is knowing that tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is knowing that it doesn't belong in a fruit salad.
Oh, you would listen. With the biggest thing we'd hear is these very intelligent students complaining about the price of beer, and it was so much cheaper at the student uni bar. Well, it would be because that was subsidised. You know, if you don't want to pay the price that everybody else pays outside of university, fuck off to the uni bar and buy your beer there. I mean, how stupid is that? You know. Oh, it's more expensive. Well, don't drink here then.
Chills. A tomato-based fruit salad is salsa.
Ah, good point. Good point.
Yes, it's a good point.
I think he got you.
But onions aren't
that's
fruit.
not a proper fruit salad, is it? You know, you wouldn't have it with your ice cream.
I've had sriracha on ice cream. That actually was not too bad.
So for all you math tards out there, here's a pretty good,
nice segue.
Pretty good derivation of Newton from Einstein, done by a guy named John Baez, another guy named Emery Bunn from University of California, Riverside.
So this paper is only half biased.
Yeah,
it's too hard to read. It's so tiny.
Yeah, I left a link in the side chat, and
oh, okay, cool.
And you can go to this thing, and it takes you through a fairly simple proof or derivation of Newton from Einstein's field equations. It's cool. It's a little bit mathy, but you know, it's not all that bad.
Well, that's why people like Riley reject it because they can't do it.
Oh, but it's got R in it.
It does.
Is that R? Is that R assumed? Is it like an assumed R?
It is.
Is it presupposed?
It was presupposed.
Well, I'm worried about that R. It's in capital R all over the place in this. That could be a problem.
And that G should actually be a B.
Damn it.
No, shouldn't that G be D for downity, or is it droppity?
You got droppity and bobbity.
I'm sure it's fractal barotropic Scholing. Oh no, that's something else. Sorry.
So the next flat width that tells you that Einstein superseded Newton, just give him this and say, "Oh, okay, show me where this is wrong."
Yeah.
I'm just there's so many easier things that they get wrong. You know, it's. I'm going to go for the low-hanging fruit first, personally. There's so much.
Well, I still go back to my favourite. Explain the sunrise and the sunset.
How am I going to figure out the volume of the sphere inside the sphere?
I don't know. I'll shut it down now.
I still want a good explanation on the southern celestial pole.
Yep.
Another one, and this was an argument I had with Riley a little while ago, only because he'd replied to one of my comments, gravity isn't real. I said, well, explain tides then. Oh, well, I don't have to. No, you don't have to because you can't. You know, because he asked me that weeks ago. He said, oh, explain tides without gravity. I said, well, why should I? Because it is gravity. It's the sun and the moon in the main, mainly the moon, but the sun as well, and the movement of the earth. But it's mainly the gravitational effect of the moon that causes our tides. Why should I explain it without gravity? Because that's what it fucking is. I said, you explain it then. Silence. Tumbleweed.
It's 2/3 moon and 1/3 sun, basically.
Yep. But he says he can't and he doesn't have to. Well, of course you don't have to because you can't.
This just proves that with math you can fold things inside and out and end up with the same equation at the end that you had at the beginning.
Oh, here we are. Here's his quote. I don't have to provide any alternative to laugh at you morons who think gravity is a force and completely ignore Einstein who says it isn't a force. It's not my fault your science is contradictory, but hey, you preach the stuff you agree with and pretend the current stuff, the bit you don't agree with, doesn't exist. Morons. Sleeping warrior calling us morons. I mean, shit, and I've said his name again. Oh, sorry, Q.
That's not even his name.
Well, if you look at Newton, actually, he never said it was a force.
Well, no. And of course, Einstein's work was built on Newton, as he said.
Yeah.
And as somebody showed us.
Newton literally said it was an acceleration.
Yep.
It's not a force if nothing's there.
Well, once you apply an acceleration to a mass, you end up with a force.
No, it takes two.
Nope. One force. I mean, one acceleration, one mass. That's all you got to have.
That's what I mean. That's two things, though.
Oh, okay.
I still say that the Globe Deniers have 5 tricks: deny, dodge, divert, disparage, and disappear. That's it. That's all they got.
Well, I wish they would bloody disappear.
Well, unfortunately, they only do it temporarily.
Yeah, then they come back with more dumb shit.
No, not more. The same.
Same.
No. That's only chemo that comes back with exactly the same shit every day.
But did you? And I must bring this up because this really made me chuckle early on. Have you seen Ranty's latest video?
Yeah.
No.
He's
the one
he's.
from this
Yeah, I
morning
know
where he's
you have
talking
Blue,
about
'cause
Sun Man Down.
he's been to the coast again, and he's saying, "Oh, why can't I see, the land on the horizon, all the rest of it?" Which on a clear day you would, but as often happens, and particularly in this country, he's saying, "Oh, look, it's a beautiful day. It's a lovely day." Yes, today has been fucking hot, but out at sea, it's very clearly hazy. And he's going, "Oh, can any globe earthers, can conspiracy cats and Simon Dan tell me why I can't see the land that I should be able to see on such a beautiful day?" And it's just like, oh, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, my
This guy who's
response.
an
Did you
expert on
just tell him
optics.
because you're blind, dude? You're blind.
No.
See a doctor.
I think you saw my response, didn't you, Farmers?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, it's quite ridiculous. I mean, it's a hazy day, as you quite often get out to sea. You get a lot of haze, and it's. Oh, why can't I see it? Fucking twat.
I'm not even.
I'm
idiot.
No.
I'm actually seriously considering putting up a $1,000 reward for anybody that can send a boat out 250 nautical miles and then get a big telescope and zoom that sucker back into vision.
I could, but I'd have to find a very, 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 very tall mountain and a very, very, very strong telescope.
Nope, from sea level.
Yeah, can't be done.
Yeah, the atmosphere will get in the way.
Can I be on the moon when I do this?
Yeah, and we all know the atmosphere is liquid, right?
Oh, that's right. Yes, it's liquid. It's
Why
full
not?
of water. It's full of millions of liters of water. Hang on. Well, it's full of millions of liters of water.
Fluid.
That's the most miserable Pete
Is
Shea
that why when I
impersonation.
run through it really fast, I get all wet?
I
Yes.
can't do Pete Shea. Really, I
On a hot day?
can't.
I like how you turn Pete Shea into the leprechaun from Lucky Charms.
What?
Pete Shea. He's one of the few that can make me rethink my peaceable ways.
No, I found a way.
God.
I found a way to shut him up inside chat. Just ask him how his son
Doesn't
is.
leave because you guys are just talking about people this whole time.
Sorry.
Well, you could talk about things instead of people that aren't even
Okay.
here that
What-
suck and are boring.
What do you want to talk about, Q?
Why are you guys obsessed about those people? I want to talk about why you guys are obsessed with these people.
Not obsessed.
You sure?
Yeah.
It's mostly because I'm not really allowed to talk a lot about the cases that I see daily.
Well, we don't have to talk about politics or religion because I don't want us to get in an argument and hate each other. But at least we could talk about like the Earth, maybe, and like why it's not flat.
Oh, we've got 15 minutes to talk about whatever it is we're going to talk about.
Or like why the atmosphere has pressure.
Gravity.
What it would be like if there was no air pressure, maybe. Where would the air be?
Die.
Would
What would
there be no
happen?
atmosphere?
I now know that GPS in the chat is American.
Anybody
He just
want
asked
to
if the leader-
explain ambiogenesis to me? Is that what it's called?
Abiogenesis.
Genesis. What, you
Does
mean
anybody want
the origin of life?
Yeah, does anybody want to like break that down for me real quick in 15 minutes?
I think that'd be a little impossible.
Then the dinosaurs came along, but they all got too fat and they turned into
Well,
oil.
actually, there's a really interesting study being done on mud and the lattice structures formed in mud and how that could have been a precursor to what we recognize as then replicating life.
Oh, you mean like so like when God formed Adam out of clay, it was like a serious fucking clay thing?
Not quite.
No.
No, more like that is the altar that the baby of life was placed upon.
Okay, because I always thought that the Bible, when it said that God formed Adam out of the clay, that it meant the nucleus, like the new clay.
Oh, nice. I like that.
Yeah, because for me, even though I got laughed at it and then I had to deny it, the Bible's a science book.
I would strongly disagree with you on that point. I think there's some very interesting things in the Bible.
I think it is a science book. I think you just overthink it.
It's science as far as Bronze Age shepherds and sheep herders knew.
That's good enough.
But that is the great thing about science. It's always learning new things and improving. And I think we've moved on from the Bronze Age a tad.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it's actually really fun the way that Arent describes abiogenesis according to the Bible, which is Adam was created by a golem spell.
Oh yes, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, huh?
Well, and the thing is in Hebrew mythology, golems were often made of clay.
Yeah, that's how you do it. And then,
Feet of Clay, one of Terry Pratchett's nicer, better Discworld novels, all about golems.
Yeah, that's quite a good one, actually.
Yeah.
So apparently now the human race has been created by a group of necromancers.
Have they? Oh, hey, what?
Oh, are we playing World of Warcraft again?
Are we golems or are we goyim? Uh-oh. Shit. Those words are too similar.
You can't say that on YouTube.
Don't start kvetching at me because I don't need the source.
If we rearrange them, add some letters, take some away, don't we get Aristarchus?
Oh Jesus, not Aristarchus.
No, don't say that. Don't even think it.
Okay, it's another one.
Can you agree with Wolfgang that the Bible's a science book?
Yeah.
Everybody
drink.
Nobody else say Aristarchus.
What's that? Don't say Aristarchus.
Oh shit.
You guys like Jordan Peterson? Do you agree with him?
Let's see if this works.
Do we like who?
Jordan Peterson.
Spurs chemo, Spurs chemo, Spurs chemo.
Please don't do
that. And he appears in a puff of smoke.
Okay, let's go for the better option.
Candyman.
No, Max.
Okay, sorry, I'll stop it now.
You guys all have been your brains are all disturbed.
Well, that's absolutely correct.
And you're just now figuring that out.
Kind of. I guess I was naive and I believed people were good, but now I see I was wrong. You're right.
See, now that's gullible.
Doesn't make me stupid. Technically, it makes you
loans.
stupid.
I think everybody's gullible sometimes.
They took it out of the dictionary.
Absolutely.
And that was part of my point. Everybody's been fooled at least once.
And sometimes knowingly. Come on, let's face it. We've all chased after the wrong girl or had the wrong girl chase after you.
Each of my kids in turn, I convinced them that bazillion was the biggest number there was.
Nice.
They
Did you
just
say
want to
that?
say alien over and over again.
That was cool, but not.
You guys want to devise?
Oh, that's right. They can't hear Sean talking.
So they can hear us, but they can't hear you.
So if we talk to Sean, we sound like we're the crazy ones.
Like I give a damn if I think anybody's crazy or not.
Look, I want to know if you guys think that this guy needs $10,000 in a GoFundMe or not.
Which one?
I was about to say like 3,000 inappropriate things, if you'll allow me.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so $10,000. Does that pay $10,000? What does $10,000 buy? Does that buy an inverted penis or what, dude? To see Red's Rhetoric in a bikini? I don't know. I've already seen him, dude.
Ah, I know who you're talking about.
I just wanted to say a lot of inappropriate things about people.
I know exactly who and what you're on about.
Yeah, they're trying to relocate Sean Hufford.
Yep.
Yeah, not all of them. Just that one part. They just want to take that one part of him and relocate it.
Oh, let's see. Don't tranny up Sean. Sean's got enough problems without that. Pete
He's
Shea
got
will be
en-
on him like white on rice if you do that.
Okay.
He
Well,
has,
we
and
were
I
talking
apologize.
about being gullible.
I apologise in advance, but he's got enough on his chest. Yeah.
Because he fucking talked me into it.
This is the problem with girls.
That's the problem with girls. They make men who fucking ruin the world. Get all those men out of their vaginas, and then the men just run wild, ruining everything.
See, it's the girls' fault. It's the women to blame.
I have to say it yes. Because they're awesome.
Yes.
The world would be a hell of a lot less interesting if it wasn't for women.
It's true.
I'm just telling you what $10,000 can buy. I'm not making any claims.
Well, if you're telling us what $10,000 will buy, then you are making a claim.
Okay. I'm making a flat earther claim then. Which is to make a claim but deny that I'm making any.
Damn, and I thought logic would work.
No, this is flat earth, dude. Logic is my bitch.
Logic doesn't get looking.
No Name, can you explain a little bit what you're saying in chat? Women are terrified of sex robots. What does that even mean?
What sex robots? What?
Japan has no. Yeah, is it Japan? Japan? Yeah, it's Japan.
Do you know, if
they
it's
have
Japan, it
they
wouldn't
have
surprise me.
they have robot sex brothels. And no, I will not Google that so you can see.
If sex robots get good, women become obsolete. Wolfgang.
You know, I told you I was making some scary ass videos, dude.
Yeah.
I got
I
everything.
don't know what
I
to
got
say
everything
now.
to show you just how sick and scary y'all is on the internet. But here you go. Like, wait, did you ever know this? Because I just want to change the subject now. Look up China. We were talking about China, right? Did you know that motherfuckers pay rent to sleep in a motherfucking cage there? Now, I had been listening to Rage Against the Machine my whole life. And there is a line where he is like, people sleeping in cages. And I'm like, that's about prison, right? But it's not. It's about people in China who pay rent for a cage to live in. So it's basically like an animal cage. They got a mat. They keep all their stuff in it. They can lock it during the day when they're gone. They come home. There's like 20 of them in one apartment room. And that's their cage. That's where their stuff is. That's where they sleep at night. They lock themselves in a cage, little cage inside an apartment. So it's like one apartment, like any apartment any of you motherfuckers are living in. And you got 20 cages in the living room, 20 cages in the extra bedroom, and all of these Chinese motherfuckers living in them.
I've just Googled it and looked up in wealthy Hong Kong, the poor are living in wire cages.
You're welcome.
Why don't they just move to the why don't they just move to the ghost cities?
I don't know. You told me about it as well. I can't stop thinking about it now. I'm like, they got fake Parises with nobody living in them. They got people sleeping in cages. What the fuck is wrong with the human race? What's wrong with you?
We're fucked up.
Together, I'm getting sick of it.
Wait. You have Chinese people living in cages, and you're upset with us because we're talking shit about Dan? You see how big his head is? And
so you know why I'm getting upset with you? I want to talk about Dan because I want to talk about the Chinese people sleeping in the cages because I think we are smart and we can figure out how to get Chinese people up in the head to sleep in a cage.
I don't know. I mean, it's been happening for a while, and obviously
we ain't gonna get there if we never talk about it. You didn't even know what's happening. Now at least you know
didn't even know there were a Paris in China.
Because that's like vanity and not about humanity and real shit that I fucking care about. I don't give a shit about fucking
check this out.
Tacky ass Las Vegas is being built all over the world.
Well, I can't be showing Chinese people in cages. I'm sorry.
You understand? I don't think you understand. See, I know a lot of people like want to hate on me and shit because I'm Jewish or whatever. But I'm like real traditional, dude. I think you all crazy. I think you are all ego crazy driven fuckers. You're just consuming everything before you even know where you are or what this is that we are doing with this life. And that's always gonna be at my core of everything.
Yeah, that's called American.
It's called. You guys are fucking.
You see this? You see this? This is a abandoned town.
Yeah, and they got motherfuckers sleeping in a cage.
It's the Dubai of China.
Where do you think you live? Where you? How long until that building's standing there making money for somebody? Some
it's not making shit.
You had to sleep in a cage.
It is not making
How long until
any money.
How long until that you, dude? How long until you in the cage?
70,000.
It's got 70,000.
70,000 people live in this city right here.
Speculation on coal industry. So they just
thought you
think
said
that
this
there
was
could
a
be
fake
coal there,
city.
so they build a city.
Basically,
this is a
and they've
fake
done
city.
that multiple times around China, trying to force development.
Yes.
Oh, and there's more.
They always do that. That's the same thing they do everywhere. They did that in Chicago. That's how we got the slums, dude. That's what they always do. They
slums
do the same
have
thing
people
to us
there.
every generation. I don't care if they got people there. They shouldn't. They not safe to live in. Did you know all the Bangladeshi slums they burned down recently? The whole fucking shanty town.
In the South American fire?
No, I'm talking about Bangladesh.
I
Do you even know where fucking
God damn it.
Bangladesh is?
Holy shit, I was kidding. And yes, like those.
Sometimes I sound like really angry or hateful.
People
But I'm
from
just
Europe too, because we had a good geography education.
I had a good geography fucking education. Bangladesh is not in South America. Okay?
And this house in the middle of a road
down.
is real as well.
I've seen that before. Yes, they bought up everybody else's house to demolish them, and basically this one said, "No, you fuck off."
There's other ones like that too.
Yeah.
There's another one that's super weird.
Yeah, I've seen some of them before. It's just like, no, I'm not selling up for anything. Build around me. So they did.
You actually have a question for you. Do you think sex robots will cure incels of their awfulness?
No.
No.
Hell, it's like that doesn't even make sense. They don't want nothing to do with that.
The robots won't want to know them.
What's an incel?
Someone who hates people for hates sex.
Celibate.
An incel is, in fact, any fucking person. Okay, like
Are you reading a Google definition right now?
Incels, the incel is like the involuntary celibate. That's their definition of it. So these are people who think that they can't get laid because nobody will sleep with them, but they're not really doing anything about it. So they're just like living that dream.
And then complaining, living the dream, and then complaining bitterly about it.
Yeah, I'm blaming it on everyone else.
Yeah, so it's just everybody else's fault. Yes, it's not your fault because you're such a douchebag, you know.
Yeah, but there have been some really famous incels you know about. They're like some famous child molesters. Child molesters are incels. Rapists and murderers are incels. All those people there, they're on like a spectrum of people.
What?
No, it's like a spectrum of like this personality disorder, dude. I'm telling you, they're all the same, like to a degree, where they have that same personality disorder, where they think they're stuck and they're blaming, and then they're sick, and then some people take it as far as like Ted Bundy.
And a hypochondriac.
No, I'm just telling you, Ted Bundy was an incel. That's why he raped and murdered women.
But he
Because he believed that women did not like him, really. That women hated him.
They fucking killed for him.
Against women, and he started raping and murdering them.
No, I thought he had like his women do that stuff for him.
No, that's Charles Manson.
Ah. At least I don't know my serial killer, so I'm pretty happy about that, actually.
No.
Charles
He
Manson
just got his
saved the
family
world,
to do
and you
it for
guys
him.
just don't understand.
I talked to Dan today. My brain is fried. I can't think of anything really logical right now. I'm just letting shit go until it's over. I'm gonna get the fuck out of here so I can get ready for the stream that'll probably get taken down.
Well, I should have just done my own stream and talked about this fucking shit I want to talk about, Sean. I'm
Yeah, but
sorry.
no one knew you were fucking back.
Well, that's why I came over here, dude.
Yay.
Speaking
Fuck
of,
you.
welcome back.
No, are you gonna go? You gonna stream right now?
No.
Why?
I don't know. I wanted to talk to you.
Okay.
To ask you an awkward question about drama.
Do I have to do it now? Can we wait until I'm off?
No.
I don't want to get yelled at in front of all these people.
No, I don't want to yell at you. I just wanted to ask you a question,
Oh.
but it would be awkward. But you don't have to do it now. I'm just letting you know I do want to ask you an awkward question. You can let me know when you're ready for it.
Could I get like some wine and like some like strawberries or something?
Whatever you need, Pussy.
Cool. Yeah, gotta hurt a little bit. Okay, so this is what's gonna happen. All right, so I am going to end this stream, but it will be more to prep for later. If you don't know where the other channel is, my description is down at the bottom. It says the backup channel, Truth Army Soldier. I'll be using that one so I don't get this one in trouble for the videos that are the uploads that I'll be playing. But we're gonna go into a couple of the ones that Dan gave me, where they're basically talking about the Salton Sea experiment. And I want to talk about FE Corps, FE Corps. I don't even know what the fuck you call them. I want to talk about them though, because I went through their a couple of their laser tests. Like I read through their little website crap, and man, is it just incredibly wrong. They lie and just BS everything on that, and it just boggles my mind how these flat earthers think that shit is legit. And here's the best part. There will be 2 flat earthers there, and they will be flat earthers that I actually have respect for and respect me, so there will be no shit talking to them, but they're going to do pretty much what I've been asking Flat Earth to do now, and that is call out the bullshit, and they're willing to. So they'll be on a little bit later on. Who? I'm not telling. I don't even think anyone knows them, so it's not really that big of a deal. But more important, like I said, it's to the point now where if they're not going to come on and be honest, have a good conversation about these things and be rational, then I'll find the links and I'll share them and I'll start talking about them, because the realization is that those are the people, the ones that I'm going to be showing you guys, are the ones that are the issue. They're the ones that keep telling people bullshit, and I don't like it. I don't like it at all. And if I've gotten a little bit angry since I was a flat earther, that's because I'm starting to realize that there's a fucking unfortunate chance that I may have been me, Jose, and a couple others actually here for truth. That would piss me off if I actually had to find that out. And it's looking that way. So flat earth, if you're actually not full of shit, act like it. If you're here to hang out, say it. Let us know. I'd much rather know you're a flat earther because I had a flat earth friend. Or you just don't understand stuff. Just say you don't understand it and listen, and things will work out. But I digress. I'm not going to rant on this anymore. I'm going to rant later on. So it's going to be a quick get out of here. Farmers, say something.
Something.
Thank you.
It's best I can do it at 1:45
I'm gonna. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting you don't live in the rational world.
Speak for yourself, matey boy.
Big Blue. I'll DM you because I'm gonna let you know. I'll let you know when I know for sure I'll be able to get on. I do know you do live on the East Coast, basically. I sounded so retarded when I said that. Oh my god, the Eastern Coast. What the fuck? Oh, and I wanted to say this. Hang on, stop. Hang on, Dress. Hang on.
Sorry.
I called out Schrodinger's cat as well, and I was serious about doing that. He made that thing about Arwen and LIGO.
Yes.
I have footage of LIGO saying they can't make the fucking measurement to get to actually produce these the detection of these waves. I want him to explain it. That's right, Schrodinger's cat. I'm calling you out.
Oh.
That's right. I'll send you the link to the other live stream I'm gonna do later on from the other channel where I don't care if it gets in trouble. Better be there, punk.
What is this? What are you giving links for?
Oh no, just so he knows where the other channel is. I don't know if he knows the backup channel.
Oh.
Yeah, that's it. I like Schrodinger's cat. I was just fucking with him, but I mean, I'm serious. I would want to debate him on it because I feel differently about LIGO. That's right, people. Glober who has questions about gravity. Uh-oh.
So where are you sending this stuff, Sean?
It's gonna be at the Truth Army Soldier channel that I have. my backup one. It's in the link. Actually, I'll put it in here so you guys can just have it here. Everyone else,
You call it backup? That was your original, wasn't it?
no, this is my original. This is my original. I got I got 2 copyright strikes in a matter of days, and they flagged me. And then until I was able to verify that I was being attacked, they wouldn't give me my channel back. So that's why I went on Truth Army Silver.
That's yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Potatoes.
That is actually.
Potato.
I really don't feel the need to hide it either. Yeah, I got hit because I basically deleted a person's upload of me, and they didn't like it too much, and I was DM'd and questioned by a certain potato, and let known that the reason I had been flagged was because I pissed a troll off. So that's why I have the other channel.
It's interesting what that particular potato cares about and reacts to and what they don't.
Yeah, it's very, very odd. Very odd. Very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Cherry picking?
Psychopathic. It really is. I'm sorry. And there'll be a point where I'm not giving a fuck so much that I'll call them out. I don't care. But, yeah, there's a lot of shit that goes on in the background people don't get to see. It's true.
So you ready for that awkward question now, Sean?
No, I told. Oh, we can make this very awkward. I'll say I can start calling people out, and it'll become very awkward. Very awkward.
Wow, what drama have I been missing?
Oh, you have. Oh, trust me, you guys are. Trust me, there's a whole world besides the live streaming and all that shit that people don't really know much about. It used to be weirder. It used to be a lot worse, actually. Remember, Q, when like the Hangouts were like literally like a soap opera backseated world that no one knew about? Weird. That's where everything went down for a while.
It's still like that. There's just less people there, and even you know who those people are that are still in there.
No, but I mean, it was like
it's like the same thing. Like after you well, I don't do this, but when you fry hamburgers on the pan, and then what's left in the pan, you go take the burger away. That's what's left in those hamburgers.
Exactly.
You mean all the flavor that didn't make it in the burger?
Whatever, if you like it, dude.
I don't know.
Ask Dan. He knows a thing or two about burgers.
I know it's slightly off topic, but there's a place in Memphis that has kept that's kept part of the same grease in the same pan. I think their burgers in for like 100 years. Is pretty disgusting.
Yeah, that is just. Thanks for sharing that. You're supposed to be like the brainiac. You're like the resident doctor, and you just 100-year-old grease dust.
So that's where Terry Pratchett got it from, right?
Why does he get to be the only doctor?
Well,
anything that doesn't kill
is
you
a doctor.
makes you stronger.
I'm a doctor.
Yep. Do you have credentials?
No, I'm just joking, dude. Come on.
Well, Bill Cosby's a doctor, so.
Yeah, but that's an honorary doctorate. That's not an MD.
Yeah, she's a doctor. She doesn't do impressions.
How long does it take to become a doctor?
I think like 10
Well,
minutes.
it depends on how many years you take off.
What's that?
Well, it depends on how many years you take off.
Take off what?
From in between undergrad and medical school.
Oh, I thought you were gonna have something clever to say. My bad.
By the way, this has got absolutely nothing to do with anything. But
I know. Well, you might as well because everyone else has.
You could just buy a doctorate, right?
Pretty sure.
Just look at that.
Did you really just?
I actually think you can buy a doctorate.
Hey, hang on, guys.
That's what
farmers
Roman did.
Farmers.
Yeah.
Why?
I just stumbled across this on Reddit, and I just thought, "Wow,
when?
Look at that."
When?
Just now.
Okay, so during the stream, you're Google searching planes in the sky.
No, I was on Reddit.
He was scrolling through Reddit.
I was scrolling through Reddit, and this popped up. This is the Spitfire.
You're not helping yourself. I feel offended by this. I just want you to know that.
Is that not an incredible photo?
No, it's terrible.
So, Sean, he's not giving you his full attention.
I know.
He's dividing his attention between you and something else.
That's almost as bad as GPS in the chat, who was talking about going to Globebusters. Yeah.
Look, I'm multitasking. I know it's something we men aren't supposed to do, but I can.
Who said that?
Said what?
Women mainly.
I don't care if you multitask. I'd actually prefer it.
Well, I didn't say you specifically. I just meant women in general. You know.
Okay. I'm gonna get out of here, guys. Oh wait, I gotta finish. Damn. Who was the last one to talk? Whoever was the last one to talk, it's their fault. I feel bad. 'Cause I think it was Blue. Or actually, I didn't get to the Blue. Not yet. It was Farmers. Yep, always Farmers. Damn.
Yeah, it's my fault.
Big Blue, you got anything coming up?
Nah, just working on some more Quantum Eraser, Nathan Oakley stuff.
Cool.
Awesome.
Those boys are the gift that just keeps on giving.
Ulcers.
Herpes.
Ugh. There goes my
They're GMO potatoes.
jeez. Dress.
I actually really have no idea about what this hangout was about whatsoever.
Neither do we.
No.
It's called the return of Q.
Yeah,
Okay, I will.
I think next time we should try and drive a topic.
That's tomorrow. Well, if you're gonna be here in about 2.5 hours, you will.
No, probably not. That's like 2:30 in the morning for me.
Yeah.
Oh, damn.
Far too late.
Wait.
Too early.
You guys won't be here, Farmers and Dress?
No.
Fuck.
We've got lives.
I will be fast. I'm hoping I'll be fast asleep. But it's bloody
Well,
hot
Dress,
over here.
what about the whole other 20 hours that you're around? Yeah, I did hear that comment.
I'll be here, Sean. I have no life. All hail you.
As will I. Again,
and I'm
By the way,
retired.
Sean,
Don't.
What's up, Q?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Let him go first.
Oh, I was just going to say, and I'm retired, and I ain't got a meeting with the president, so I'll be here if you want me.
Yeah, you'll be here because I know what time you go to bed, and it sure as hell won't be in a couple hours.
You got that right, Slim.
Who else
And I
needs
was
to
gonna
talk?
say.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say. By the way, Sean. Nice backgrounds.
Thank you. I'm so proud of them. I have like 50 more. I just don't like any of them.
it.
I only like this one. I'm looking at it now. Makes me happy. Anyway. So, guys, Q's back. Go sub.
I need to get my subs back because YouTube took them all away from me.
Bastards.
Whatever, I don't care. Most like a lot of them were really poorly named trolls that subbed to me that were nasty named. So I'm kind of happy about that.
It's kind of odd when you go look at your subs and you go, "There's a lot of fucking trolls here." Like, I thought I had more. When on this channel when I first started, I think I had at one point in time when I first had like 400. I was actually seriously, on being honest, I was convinced I had about that 300 of those 400 were trolls, were like Lotties and all that shit, because that guy has issues. Yeah. But it's okay though. No. I can talk about Lodi. We're family. I'm not kidding. Ask him.
You're married?
No, I didn't say we were married. I said we were family.
He's your brother?
No.
He's your dad?
Have you ever heard him talk? He sounds all weird.
Is he your daddy?
What the fuck? I'm pretty sure I'm older than him.
Is he your retarded
Are you his
cousin?
daddy?
I say it again? I mean, I don't really want you to say it again, but say it again.
Are you his daddy?
No, definitely
God,
not.
you made that sound creepy.
Yeah, it is kind of.
Oh,
Did that on
that's
purpose.
so fucking creepy.
Oh, just
Skin
on
is
the earth
actually
is there is flat.
crawling.
You can do shit like that, dude. Everybody can.
Okay, I'm getting the hell out of here. I think everyone got to talk. Pretty sure.
No, not everyone.
Oh.
Sorry, Brian.
No, I was talking about Shills, but I was in that.
No, he
list too.
did. What do you? He talked right before Q.
Just told a lot of really bad jokes about midget
I
porn.
think Brian's smoking the ganja. Something's up today.
I've worked 90 hours this week. I'm just dead on my feet.
Only for medical purposes.
Yeah, see, when you do it though, it's super creepy, dude. Don't do that again. ever. Damn dress. Fuck. Now I'm having nightmares and shit.
Daddy.
Okay, I'm in the hangout. Q, I'll be right back.
If you could redo that voice and ask if Sean.
Yeah, not gonna let that happen. Okay, guys. Like I said, I'm gonna be on again. I was gonna play the uploads that I was gonna play and talk about them here until I got the heads up that that Truthier guy is an asshole with it, and I don't want to risk that. And so be at the backup channel. Well, if you guys go and subscribe to the backup channel, you'll get the alert. Hit the bell over there. Worst case scenario is I'll probably do a little 30-second intro, outro upload for this channel so everyone knows when that's going to happen. Because you guys, pretty sure you want to hear what's going on. Like I said, I'm going to be playing 2 of the Salton Sea observations, and there's complete bullshitting of the results. I want to go over a couple of the balloon. It's not a balloon test, but it's a distance test at the Salton Sea that they did, and then the most important of it all is I'm going to keep continuing to call out Riley until his bitch ass shows. Hopefully he'll show tonight. If not, I'll keep doing it. I don't care. Sure enough, word will get out that I'm putting up my channel for it, and if he doesn't want to show up, we'll say a lot as far as I'm concerned. Just to say that. So guys, I'm going to push it to an hour and a half, so 5:30. I'm going to try to get everything going and be live again on the other channel, so that way I can literally play whatever the fuck I want and not care. Of course, it won't be monetized, so guess what, guys? It's going to be a cussing up a storm, god damn it. And I know this one's already going to fail. Every time Dan's big head's on the damn panel, they demonetize it. I don't care. Don't care. So, I will see you guys soon. I will... Okay, and then Jose's going to go live in 5 hours, so it looks like... Yeah, so 5 hours from now, Jose will be live. So I'll be live in 2. I'm only going to go for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours tops. Then we'll transition to Jose after that and jump on his panel. Hopefully Aaron will be there because Aaron is special. I'm pretty sure he's still locked out or in or something somewhere using himself. I don't know. But I'm going to get out of here now. Stop ranting because I got to get ready for later on. And, and we're going to go over the picture compression and all that stuff. I got details of that so you guys can see that, and that'll be part of the upload as well. Upload I'm doing later, but live stream, hour and a half. We're gonna go over these quote unquote flat earth observations and see that everyone can see what I don't even know what to say. But I do know what to expect. I expect there to be flat earthers there calling out the bullshit. There will be 2 there. I said already, there'll be 2 flat earthers there that are more than willing to do this. And that's the ultimate goal in that. Making people realize that not every flat earth is true, because every flat earth evidence isn't true because a flat earth said it. It's actually the opposite.
If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. And that simple statement is the key to science. It doesn't make a difference how beautiful your guess is. It doesn't make a difference how smart you are who made the guess or what his name is. If it disagrees with experiment, it's wrong. That's all there is to it.